The letter from American Express should have been my first red flag. Congratulations on your platinum card anniversary. It chirped, listing rewards I'd apparently earned on purchases I'd never made. I'd never even applied for an Amex, let alone spent $47,000 at Nordstrom last month. I laughed at first. Identity theft happened to everyone eventually, right? A quick call to the fraud department would sort it out. Except when I called, they had security questions only I should know. Mother's maiden name. My first pet. The street I grew up on. Ma'am, you opened this account 3 years ago, the representative insisted. In person. At our Dallas branch. Dallas, where my mother lived. My hands shook as I pulled my credit report for the first time in years. I've been so careful with money, so proud of my financial discipline working as a GS-12 revenue agent at the Internal Revenue Service. The screen loaded and my careful world imploded. 27 accounts, $500,000 in debt. Credit cards, personal loans, a Mercedes lease, even a timeshare in Cabo. All opened with my social security number, my name, my information, but not by me. The first wave was disbelief. The second was nausea. The third was rage so pure it felt like ice in my veins. I called my mother. Hi, sweetheart, she answered, bright as summer. I was just thinking about you. Did you get my text about Thanksgiving? Mom, I said, voice steady despite the hurricane in my chest. I need to ask you something and I need you to be honest. Of course, baby. What's wrong? Did you open credit cards in my name? Silence. Not the confused silence of innocence, but the calculating silence of someone choosing their lie. I don't know what you're talking about, she finally said, but her voice had shifted, defensive now. 27 accounts, Mom. $500,000. Oh, those. Like we were discussing borrowed Tupperware. Honey, you weren't using your credit. It was just sitting there, perfect and unused. Mothers deserve nice things too, you know. I've sacrificed so much. I hung up, threw my phone across my apartment, watched it crack against the wall. Then I sat on my kitchen floor and did what I did best. Strategized. Most people don't know this, but IRS agents are trained investigators. We don't just calculate taxes, we unravel financial crimes, trace hidden assets, follow money through labyrinthine schemes. We're forensic accountants with badges, and my mother had just made the fatal error of victimizing one. Monday morning, I walked into my supervisor's office. Patricia Winters had been my mentor for 5 years, a 60-year-old force of nature who'd seen every type of tax fraud imaginable. I need a week of personal leave, I said, placing my request on her desk. And I need to know the statute of limitations on identity theft in Texas. She studied my face. How bad? 500,000. My mother. Patricia whistled low. You know what you're doing, Rivera? Once you start this, there's no going back. She stole my future, I said. I'm just returning the favor. I spent that week becoming my own case file. Every receipt, every statement, every transaction mapped and categorized. My mother hadn't just stolen my identity, she'd built an entire secret life on it. The Mercedes, registered to my name at her address. The timeshare? She'd been renting it out for profit, income she'd never reported. The credit cards? A paper trail of luxury goods, cosmetic procedures, and casino charges. But the real goldmine was her tax returns. See, identity thieves usually make one crucial mistake. They forget that stolen money is still income. My mother had been living like she made $200,000 a year on a reported income of $35,000. That's not just identity theft, that's tax evasion. I pulled her returns going back 7 years. Every one was a work of fiction. The unreported rental income alone put her in felony territory. Add in the structuring, she'd been depositing cash in amounts just under $10,000 to avoid reporting requirements, and we were looking at serious federal crimes. You're sure about this? My colleague James asked, reviewing my evidence. We weren't supposed to access personal records through IRS systems, but he'd helped me use public records and credit reports to build the same picture. This is your mom. My mom died the day she decided my future was worth less than her shopping addiction, I said. The next Monday, I filed 2 things. A criminal identity theft report with the Dallas Police Department and a tip with the IRS Criminal Investigation Division. I included everything: transaction records, tax returns, a timeline showing how she'd escalated from 1 card to 27 over 3 years. Then I waited. The call came Thursday. Sophia. My mother's voice was different now, panicked, breathless. There are police here. They're saying something about identity theft. You need to tell them this is a misunderstanding. I can't do that, Mom. What do you mean you can't? I'm your mother. You wouldn't? She paused. Oh my God, you reported me? You stole $500,000 in my name. I was going to pay it back. I just needed time. With what money? The income you didn't report to the IRS? Silence, the kind that comes when someone realizes the scope of their miscalculation. You work for them, she whispered. You know what this means. I know exactly what it means. Criminal prosecution for identity theft, wire fraud, and tax evasion. Asset seizure for the unreported income. Prison time measured in years, not months. Sophia, please. You have 2 options, I continued, ice-cold professional now. Come clean about everything, cooperate fully, and maybe get it down to 18 months, or fight it and spend the next decade in federal prison. You're really doing this? To your own mother? You did it to yourself the moment you typed my social security number into that first application. She started crying then, ugly sobs that might have moved me once. I gave you life. I raised you. Doesn't that count for anything? It counted for everything I said, until you decided my credit score was worth more than my trust. The investigation moved fast after that. Turns out when an IRS agent reports their own mother for tax fraud, people pay attention. The Criminal Investigation Division found even more than I had. Offshore accounts, a pyramid scheme she'd been running, unreported gambling winnings. My identity theft was just the tip of a very dirty iceberg. The best part, she'd used my name for some of the offshore accounts. Trying to hide assets in your identity theft victim's name when that victim works for the IRS? That's a special kind of stupid. Her assets were frozen within 6 weeks. The Mercedes repossessed, the timeshare seized, every luxury item purchased with my stolen identity cataloged and prepared for auction. She'd been living in a house of cards built on my credit, and I'd lit the match. The criminal case was airtight. 27 counts of identity theft, 15 counts of wire fraud, 8 counts of tax evasion, 3 counts of structuring, 1 very pissed off daughter with a forensic accounting degree and 5 years of IRS investigative experience. She called me one last time before the trial from her lawyer's office. They're offering me a plea deal, she said, voice hollow. 3 years if I plead guilty to everything. Take it. My lawyer says I could fight it. Say you gave me permission, that it was a family arrangement. Try it. I cut her off. I have recordings of you admitting to the theft. Text messages where you brag about your purchases. Evidence of you forging my signature. Fight this, and I'll make sure you get the maximum for every single count. I'm your mother, she said one last time, like it was a magic spell that could undo felonies. No, I corrected. You're a criminal who happened to give birth to me. There's a difference. She took the plea. I sat in the courtroom during sentencing, professional in my Navy suit, watching the woman who'd raised me trade her designer clothes for federal prison khaki. The judge, a stern woman who'd seen too many family betrayals, didn't mince words. Mrs. Rivera, you didn't just steal money. You stole your daughter's trust, her financial future, her peace of mind. You did it systematically, repeatedly, without remorse until you were caught. 3 years in federal prison, followed by 5 years supervised release. Restitution of $500,000 to Ms. Sophia Rivera, plus $1.2 million to the Internal Revenue Service for tax evasion. My mother looked at me then, searching for something, forgiveness, maybe, or regret. She found neither. I'd spent those months building a wall of professionalism between us, brick by brick, audit by audit. I gave her nothing. After the sentencing, I stood on the courthouse steps in the Texas sun. My credit would take years to fully repair, but the fraudulent accounts were being removed. My mother would spend the next 3 years in a federal facility 2 states away, and I'd learned the kind of lesson they don't teach in IRS training. My phone buzzed. Patricia, texting from D.C., heard the verdict. You okay? Getting there, I typed back. For what it's worth, she added, you're the best investigator I've trained, even if this was the hardest case you'll ever work. She was wrong about that last part. The case was easy. The evidence was overwhelming. The crimes clear-cut. the trail obvious to anyone who knew how to look. The hard part was accepting that the person who taught me right from wrong had been wrong all along. But that's the thing about working for the IRS. We don't deal in emotions or excuses or family loyalty. We deal in numbers, in facts, in the immutable truth that everyone pays what they owe. Even mothers who think they deserve nice things. Especially mothers who steal them in their daughter's name. 6 months later, I got a letter from federal prison. I recognized the handwriting but didn't open it. Instead, I fed it into the same shredder I use for sensitive documents. Watching her words turn to confetti, she taught me everything I knew about holding grudges after all. Might as well honor her lessons if nothing else. The only thing I kept was the final restitution check, framed in my office next to my IRS credentials. A reminder that sometimes the best revenge isn't emotional. It's mathematical, methodical, and comes with a federal case number. And that mothers who steal from their daughters should really check where their daughters work first.
I gave up everything for their dream. The full-ride scholarship to Princeton, my apartment in the city, even the chance at the life I'd spent years planning. All of it, traded for a promise that turned out to be as hollow as the foundation we were about to pour. My name is Julia, and I'm the fool who believed family always comes first. "Jules, honey, can you hold this level while I check the measurements?" Dad called out across the dusty construction site. It was move-in day, and he was still fussing over details like the porch steps being perfectly aligned. I grabbed the metal tool, ignoring the ache in my shoulders from a double shift at the hospital. "Perfect, sweetheart, just like you." He smiled, but his eyes didn't quite meet mine. They hadn't in months. I forced myself to smile back, remembering the day 3 years ago when they'd first shown me the plans for their dream retirement home. Mum had spread the blueprints across our kitchen table, her hands trembling with excitement. "Look at this suite, Julia," she'd said, pointing to the largest bedroom. "It's for you, of course. You're making all this possible." Back then, I'd believed her. I'd believed them both. The sound of tyres on gravel pulled me from the memory. A sleek BMW pulled up, and my sister Vivian stepped out, designer sunglasses perched on her perfect nose. Her boyfriend Jameson was right behind her, carrying nothing but his phone. "Oh my God, it's gorgeous!" Vivian squealed, twirling around. "Daddy, it's exactly like the Pinterest board I made." I watched as our parents rushed to embrace her, leaving me still holding the level. 3 years of working myself to exhaustion, hospital shifts, weekend tutoring, night classes, and Vivian swoops in like she built the place herself. "Julia, be a dear and grab my bags." She didn't even look at me as she said it, already leading our parents inside to discuss furniture placement. I set down the level and walked to her car. Inside, I could hear her voice carrying through the open windows. "The main suite has the best view, right? Jameson and I need lots of natural light for our morning yoga." My hands froze on the trunk handle. The main suite. My suite. "Of course, sweetie," Mum's voice floated out. "We want you to be comfortable." I popped the trunk with more force than necessary, remembering the night I'd actually secured this property. The night I'd signed the papers in Zoe's office, my hands shaking as I wrote the check. My parents had tried to buy it months earlier, but their credit wasn't good enough. They never knew I'd stepped in, never knew I owned the land their dream house now stood on. "Julia!" Vivian's sharp voice cut through my thoughts. "Careful with those bags, they're Gucci." I carried her designer luggage inside, passing Jameson lounging on a box marked "Kitchen, Fragile." He winked at me, and I felt my skin crawl. "Mom," I called out, trying to keep my voice steady, "where should I put my boxes? The ones for the main suite." The silence that followed was deafening. Mum and Dad exchanged that look, the one they thought I couldn't read after 28 years. "Oh, honey," Mum started, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "We've been meaning to talk to you about that. Vivian and Jameson really need their own space, you understand? And the basement guest room is so cozy." I stood there, watching their practice performance. Dad suddenly became fascinated with his shoes. Vivian smirked behind her phone. Jameson just kept scrolling through his. "The basement," I repeated flatly. "It's temporary," Mum assured me, but we both knew that was a lie. Just like the promise of the suite. Just like every promise they'd made since I gave up that scholarship. I nodded slowly, picked up my box and headed for the stairs. Behind me, I could hear Vivian already planning where to put her yoga mat in my suite. Their voices faded as I descended into the windowless basement, but I wasn't listening anyway. Instead, I was thinking about the property deed locked in my safe deposit box, about the lease agreement my lawyer Zoe had emailed me this morning, about the careful paper trail I'd maintained for 3 years. I set my box down in the dark basement and smiled for the first time that day. They'd forgotten about me, all right. Forgotten that I wasn't the same naive girl who gave up Princeton. Forgotten that I'd learned from watching them that family doesn't always mean loyalty. And now it was move-in day, and they'd forgotten all about me. But they were about to remember. The basement's single bulb cast harsh shadows as I unpacked my meagre belongings. My phone buzzed, a text from Zoe. "Lease agreement is ready. You sure about this?" I typed back. "They just gave my suite to Vivian. Do it." Heavy footsteps creaked above me, followed by Vivian's shrill laughter. I took a deep breath and headed upstairs, plastering on my best supportive sister smile. "Julia," Mum called from the kitchen, "could you help me unpack these boxes? Vivian and Jameson are arranging their furniture." Their furniture? In my suite? I bit back the words, threatening to spill out. "Sure, Mum." I started unpacking dishes, carefully arranging them in the cabinets, while Mum fluttered around, rearranging everything I put away. "Oh, sweetie," she said, moving a stack of plates for the 3rd time. "I've been meaning to ask. You're not upset about the room situation, are you? It's just that Vivian and Jameson need their privacy, and you're so understanding." I gripped the edge of the counter. "Of course not, Mom. Why would I be upset?" "That's my girl," she patted my cheek. "Always so practical. Unlike your sister, you know how artistic types are. Artistic types who'd never worked a day in their lives, maybe." I forced myself to nod. Jameson sauntered into the kitchen, heading straight for the fridge. "Hey, future mother-in-law," he called out, grabbing a beer. "The suite is perfect, those windows. Chef's kiss." Mum beamed at him. "I'm so glad. Julia helped pick out those windows, actually. She worked extra shifts to afford the upgrade." "Did she now?" Jameson's eyes narrowed slightly as he looked at me. How generous of her. Before I could respond, Vivian burst in. "Mom, the closet isn't big enough for all my shoes. Can we convert the hall closet too?" "But that's where we plan to store the—" I started. "Of course, darling," Mum interrupted. "Julia won't mind using the basement storage instead, will you, honey?" I watched them all standing there. Mum eager to please, Vivian entitled as ever, Jameson calculating something behind his eyes. Dad appeared in the doorway, looking uncomfortable, but saying nothing. As usual. "Actually," I said quietly, "I need to head out, meeting Zoe for coffee." "Your lawyer friend?" Jameson asked too quickly. "The one who handles real estate?" I met his gaze steadily. "That's right." "Lawyers," Vivian scoffed. "So boring. No offence, sis, but you could really use some excitement in your life. Maybe if you'd gone to Princeton instead of staying here." The room went silent. Even Vivian seemed to realise she'd gone too far. "Vivian," Mum hissed, "apologise to your sister." "Sorry," Vivian muttered, not sounding sorry at all. "I just meant—" "It's fine," I cut her off, grabbing my keys. "I'll be back later." "Don't forget we're having a family dinner tonight," Mum called after me, "to celebrate our first night in our forever home." Our forever home. Right. I drove straight to Zoe's office, my hand shaking slightly on the steering wheel. She was waiting for me, legal documents spread across her desk. "You look like hell," she said, pushing a coffee toward me. They gave my suite to Vivian and her con artist boyfriend. Zoe's eyebrows shot up. The suite you specifically paid extra to have built? The very one. I took a long sip of coffee. Did you find anything in Jameson's background check? She slid a folder across the desk. 2 fraud charges dropped when the victims wouldn't testify. Multiple civil suits settled out of court. He's smooth, I'll give him that. I flipped through the pages, a plan forming. And the lease agreement? Ready to serve. Zoe leaned forward. Julia, are you absolutely sure about this? It's going to blow your family apart. I thought about the basement room, about Vivian's smirk, about years of sacrifice met with casual dismissal. They did that themselves, I said. They just don't know it yet. My phone buzzed. Another text from Mom. Don't be late for dinner, sweetie. Making your favourite. I showed it to Zoe, who snorted. Your favourite or Vivian's? Vivian's, of course. She's allergic to shellfish, so I haven't had shrimp in years. Mum says it's inconsiderate to cook it. Jesus, Zoe muttered. When are you serving the papers? I stood up, gathering the documents. Let them have their family dinner first. One last meal in their perfect new home, believing they're in control. You're scary sometimes, you know that. I smiled, thinking of the basement room waiting for me. They had no idea where they stood, but they were about to find out. The family dinner was exactly as I expected. Vivian dominated the conversation while I pushed food around my plate, watching Mum hang on her every word. And then, Vivian gushed, Jameson's company might promote him to regional manager. We'll need to host so many business dinners. I caught Jameson's slight flinch. Interesting. Speaking of business, I said casually, how's the new position going, Jameson? He cleared his throat. Great, really great. Lots of responsibility. That's wonderful, I smiled, pulling out my phone. We should connect on LinkedIn. Oh, I'm not really active on... Found you, I announced. Mom beamed at our bonding, while Jameson's face went pale. The next morning, I met Zoe at her office again. His company has no record of him, she confirmed. He's been lying about his job for months. Perfect. I pulled out a stack of papers. I've got everything documented. Texts from Mom promising me the suite, emails about the windows I paid for, bank statements showing every penny I put into this house. And the property deed? Safe and sound. I handed her another folder, plus recordings of Dad admitting they couldn't get the loan, though he doesn't know I bought it. Zoe whistled. You've been planning this for a while? 3 years of watching them favour Vivian? You bet I have. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Sweetie, could you pick up some groceries? Vivian has a migraine. Of course, I replied, adding a heart emoji. The perfect daughter, right until the end. Zoe started preparing the lease papers. Market rate for a house this size? They'll never be able to afford it. That's the point. Later that afternoon, I stopped by the house to drop off the groceries. Voices drifted down from the main suite. My suite. Something's not right, Jameson was saying. I tried looking up the property records, but they're sealed. You're paranoid, Vivian replied. Julia's just jealous. She always has been. Your sister's smarter than you think. Those questions about my job. Please, she's probably still crying in her basement about that stupid scholarship. I quietly took out my phone and pressed record. Every bitter word, every dismissive laugh, all evidence for later. That evening, an envelope arrived for my parents. I watched Mum's hands shake as she opened it. This must be a mistake, she whispered, reading the lease agreement. $3,000 a month? Market rate, I said softly, starting in 30 days. Dad grabbed the papers. What is this? Who sent this? My lawyer did. I own the property. The silence was deafening. Mum's face went from confused to horrified. Dad just kept staring at the papers. You? Vivian appeared at the top of the stairs. You own our house? My house, I corrected. The one I bought after the bank rejected Mum and Dad's loan application. But, Mum's voice cracked, we're family. Family, I laughed. Was it family when you gave away the suite I paid for? When you stuck me in the basement like some dirty secret? We can't afford this rent, Dad finally spoke. I know. Vivian stormed down the stairs. You can't do this to us. I have plans. Jameson's promotion. The promotion at the job he doesn't have? I cut in. Yeah, I know about that too. More silence. Then Mum started crying, her go-to manipulation tactic. Julia, please, she sobbed. We raised you better than this. You raised me to sacrifice everything for family, I said. So I did, and look how you repaid me. I headed for the basement, pausing at the top of the stairs. You have 30 days to either sign the lease or move out. Your choice. You'll regret this, Vivian hissed. I thought about the scholarship I gave up, the years of exhausting work, the casual cruelty of being relegated to the basement. No, I said, I don't think I will. Later that night, my phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. Watch your back, it read. You have no idea what you're starting. I forwarded it to Zoe with a single comment. Jameson's getting nervous. She replied immediately, Want me to file a harassment report? Not yet, I typed back. Let's see how desperate they get first. I lay in my basement room, listening to the chaos upstairs. Mum crying, Dad making phone calls, Vivian screaming at Jameson. My phone kept buzzing with texts from family friends. How could you do this to your parents? I turned off my phone and smiled in the darkness. They thought this was the worst of it. They had no idea what was coming next. I woke to the sound of shuffling papers in my makeshift basement office. The digital clock read 2:17 a.m. Someone was going through my files. I grabbed my phone, opened the camera, and crept silently up the basement stairs. The office door was ajar, a flashlight beam dancing across my desk. Looking for something, Jameson? He spun around, papers scattering. Julia, I couldn't sleep and... I flicked on the lights, still recording. And you decided to break into my office at 2 a.m. Break in? He forced a laugh. Come on, we're family. I was looking for aspirin. In my filing cabinet? His friendly mask slipped for a second. Listen, we both know you're bluffing. No way you could afford this property on a nurse's salary. You'd know all about bluffing, wouldn't you? I stepped closer. How's that promotion coming along? You think you're so clever, he snarled, dropping the act entirely. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Actually, I do. I pulled out my phone, showing him the screen. James Wilson, arrested 2019 for investment fraud. Charges dropped when the victims mysteriously changed their stories. Then again, in 2021, same pattern. His face went white. How did you... I'm not as stupid as Vivian, I said. I do my research. A floorboard creaked behind me. I turned to find Vivian in the doorway, her perfect face twisted with rage. What are you doing to my boyfriend? Catching him breaking and entering, I replied, holding up my phone, still recording, by the way. Delete that right now. She lunged for my phone, but I stepped back. Already uploaded to the cloud, and my lawyer has copies of everything, including some interesting transactions from Mum and Dad's retirement account. Vivian froze. What are you talking about? $50,000, I said quietly. Transferred to Vivienne's Boutique LLC 6 months ago. Funny, I never saw that store open. That's none of your business. It is when they emptied their retirement fund for your failed fashion venture. I turned to Jameson. Is that why you're really here? Thought you were getting a rich family? He wouldn't meet my eyes. Vivian looked between us, realization dawning. Jamie, tell her she's wrong. His silence was answer enough. Get out, I told him. Both of you. And if I catch you in my office again, I'm calling the police. You wouldn't dare, Vivian hissed. It would kill Mom. Try me. They left, but not before Jameson turned back. This isn't over. You're right, I agreed. It's just beginning. The next morning, I met with an old friend from college who now worked as a financial journalist. This is quite a story, Darnell said, reviewing the documents. Investment fraud, family betrayal, hidden property ownership. You sure you want this public? Not yet, I replied. Just keep it ready. He studied my face. This isn't the Julia I knew in college. That Julia gave up Princeton to help her family. This Julia knows better. Back at the house, Mum was waiting with her best guilt trip expression. I found something interesting today, she said, holding up an old envelope. The trust paperwork your father and I set up years ago. My heart skipped. What trust? The one we created when you were born. We removed your name last year. Put everything in Vivian's name instead. The betrayal shouldn't have hurt any more, but it did. Why? We knew you'd be fine on your own. Vivian needs more support. She reached for my hand. You understand, don't you? I pulled away. When were you planning to tell me? We thought it would be easier this way. She smiled weakly. You've always been so independent. Independent, I repeated. You mean useful, until I wasn't. Julia, I have to go, I cut her off. Zoe's expecting me. I drove straight to Zoe's office, hands shaking on the steering wheel. She took one look at my face and pulled out the good whiskey. What happened? I told her about the trust, about catching Jameson, about Vivian's theft from the retirement account. Jesus, she muttered, your family's piece of work. They're not my family anymore. I took a deep breath. How soon can we start eviction proceedings? You sure? Once we file... I'm sure. I pulled out my phone, showing her the latest text from Jameson. Last chance to back down. Okay then. Zoe grabbed her laptop. Let's burn it all down. I thought about the trust, about years of lies, about the basement room they thought I deserved. Yes, I said, let's burn it all down. The confrontation I'd been waiting for started at breakfast. Mum and Dad cornered me in the kitchen, their faces grim. We need to talk, Dad said, holding up the eviction notice Zoe had sent yesterday. Now you want to talk? I poured my coffee calmly. After removing me from the trust? After giving away my suite? We raised you, Mum's voice cracked. You wouldn't throw your family out. Watch me. Dad slammed his hand on the counter. Damn it, Julia, we gave you everything. Everything? I laughed. Let's talk about everything. Let's talk about working 3 jobs while Vivian partied through college. About missing my best friend's wedding because you needed help with the down payment. About giving up Princeton. You chose to stay, Mum whispered. Did I? Or did you guilt me into it? Family comes first, Julia. We need you, Julia. Don't be selfish, Julia. Heavy footsteps on the stairs announced Vivian's arrival. Still playing victim, sis? Still hiding your theft from Mum and Dad's retirement fund? Mum's head snapped up. What theft? Show them, Vivian. Tell them about the 50 grand you blew on your fake fashion business. Vivian's face went pale. That's not... I was going to pay it back. With what money? I turned to Dad. Did you know about this when you cut me from the trust? Or were you too busy making sure your favourite daughter was taken care of? Dad wouldn't meet my eyes. I knew about the land purchase, he said quietly. I let your mother believe we owned it. Douglas, Mum gasped. Vivian needed a home, he continued. You were always going to leave eventually, Julia. You're stronger. The kitchen fell silent. Years of favouritism, finally spoken aloud. Stronger, I repeated. Strong enough to carry this family for years, strong enough to give up everything, and now strong enough to take it all back. Please, Mum tried again, reaching for my hand. We can work something out. A lower rent, maybe. Market rate, I said. Or get out. You bitch, Vivian shrieked. You're just jealous because Jameson chose me, because I'm prettier, because you're a thief and a liar, I cut in. Speaking of Jameson, where is he? Still job hunting after I exposed his fraud? He's meeting with lawyers. But her voice wavered. No, he's not. I pulled out my phone, showing them the email I'd received an hour ago. He's gone, cleared out his bank account this morning. Guess he figured out there's no money left to steal here. Vivian's face crumpled. She ran from the kitchen, sobs echoing down the hall. Are you happy now? Mum demanded, breaking your sister's heart? Like you broke mine, over and over. We did our best, Dad said weakly. Your best was making sure I knew I'd always come second, that nothing I sacrificed was ever enough. I stood up. Well, now, you can all experience what it feels like to lose everything. Julia, wait, Mum called after me. You have 10 days left to decide, I said, not turning around. Sign the lease or get out. Then I'm done with all of you. I walked out to my car, hands shaking as I pulled out my phone. Darnell answered on the first ring. You okay? You sound weird. I need to not be here right now. Come over, he said immediately. I'll order that terrible pizza you like. An hour later, I sat on his couch telling him everything. Remember when we talked about moving to New York after graduation? He asked, before you stayed for them. That was a different life. It doesn't have to be. He handed me another slice of pizza. The firm I work for is expanding. They need someone with medical background for their legal team. I stared at him. Are you offering me a job? I'm offering you a chance at the life you gave up. He smiled. You're not done yet, Julia. This is just the beginning. My phone buzzed. Another text from Mom. Please come home. We can fix this. I turned off my phone and looked at Darnell. Tell me more about New York. But even as he talked about opportunities and fresh starts, I knew I couldn't leave. Not yet. Not until they understood exactly what they'd lost. I'm not done yet, I agreed, but not for the reasons he thought. I have to see this through. Darnell studied my face. Just don't lose yourself in the revenge. I already lost myself trying to be their perfect daughter, I said. This time, I'm doing things my way. The final notice arrived on a Tuesday. I hand-delivered it myself, watching their faces as they read the words, eviction pending. 3 days, I said into the silence. Sign the lease or get out. Vivian launched herself off the couch. You heartless witch! Jameson left me because of you! Jameson left because he realized there was no money to steal. That's not true. He loved me, like he loved his other victims. I pulled out a folder. Should we call Sandra from Phoenix? Or maybe Michael from Tampa? I'm sure they'd love to hear from him. Mum stepped between us. Stop it, both of you. Julia, this has gone far enough. Has it? I opened the folder. Let's talk about Vivian's other secrets, like the credit cards she opened in your name. Dad's head snapped up. What credit cards? Show them, Viv. Show them the bills you've been hiding. Vivian's face went from rage to panic. I was going to pay them off. With what? I pressed. The money you stole from their retirement or the trust fund you didn't earn? You're just bitter, she screamed. You always tried to earn love. We never needed you to. You're just bitter. You lost everything following rules. The truth of it hit like a physical blow. All these years, that's exactly what I'd done. Followed their rules, earned their love, played their game. You're right, I said quietly. I did lose everything following rules, their rules, but now we're playing by mine. My phone buzzed, a news alert. I smiled, knowing what it was before I looked. Oh, interesting, I said, holding up my phone. Looks like Jameson's past finally caught up with him. Front page news. Vivian grabbed the phone, her face crumpling as she read the headline, Serial fraudster James Wilson exposed, multiple victims come forward. You did this, she whispered. I made one phone call. Your boyfriend did the rest himself. She threw my phone across the room. I hate you. Vivienne, Mom gasped. No, let her talk, I said calmly. Let her show you who she really is, who you raised her to be. And what about who we raised you to be? Dad demanded. You raised me to be useful, to sacrifice, to give and give until there was nothing left. I retrieved my phone. Congratulations! You succeeded. A rock crashed through the window, making us all jump. Attached was a note. You'll regret this. Jameson, Vivian breathed. He's here. I was already dialing. Yes, officer, I'd like to report a threat and vandalism. Yes, I have security cameras. I smiled at Vivian. Did I forget to mention those? Within minutes, police lights flashed outside. I watched from the window as they found Jameson hiding in his car down the street. You're destroying this family, Mum said behind me. No, Mum, you did that years ago. I'm just making it official. I headed for the basement to pack my things, but something caught my eye in the attic access. A letter, yellowed with age, fluttered down when I pulled the cord. My hands shook as I recognized Mum's handwriting. Dearest Julia, thank you for everything you've sacrificed for this family. Your father and I know it hasn't been fair, but Vivian needs us more. She always has. We never intended for you to stay. You were meant for bigger things. Perhaps that's why it was so easy to take advantage of your love. We knew you could survive it. Love, Mum. The date on the letter was from 3 years ago, right after I gave up Princeton. I walked back upstairs in a daze. Mum took one look at the letter in my hands and went pale. Where did you find that? Does it matter? My voice was surprisingly steady. You knew. All this time, you knew exactly what you were doing to me. Julia, save it. I handed her the eviction notice. 3 days, not 1 minute more. That night, my phone lit up with messages. Family friends calling me heartless. Relatives begging me to reconsider. Vivian's tearful voicemails. One message stood out, from Darnell. Just heard from the firm. The job is yours if you want it. Time to choose your own path. I looked around my basement room, remembering years of choices made for others, of sacrifices that were never enough. My phone buzzed again, Zoe this time. Congrats, landlady! But I didn't smile. Instead, I felt hollow, empty. It doesn't feel like I won, I texted back. Just ended something. Sometimes, she replied. That's the same thing. The final meeting happened in the kitchen, where everything important in our family had always happened. Mum, Dad, and Vivian sat on one side of the table. I stood on the other, the lease agreement between us. 15 days, I said. That's how long you have to decide. Mum's hands trembled as she reached for the papers. 3,000 a month. We can't. Then the choice is made. We could sell some things, Dad suggested weakly. Maybe if we all contributed. Vivian snorted. With what money? Julia got Jameson arrested, remember? Jameson got himself arrested, I corrected. Just like you got yourself into credit card debt. At least I lived my life, she shot back. While you were playing martyr, I was actually happy. Happy spending their retirement fund? Happy watching them give me the basement while you took everything? Girls, please, Mum interrupted. We need to focus. Julia, surely we can negotiate. No. I pushed the papers closer. Sign or leave. Those are your only options. Dad stood up suddenly. This isn't right. We're your parents. Were you my parents when you removed me from the trust? When you read that letter and still took advantage of me? His face crumpled. We always thought you'd be okay. I am okay. That's the problem, isn't it? I survived everything you did to me, and now I'm stronger than all of you. The doorbell rang. Zoe walked in, briefcase in hand. "Time's up," she announced. "What's it going to be?" Mum started crying, real tears this time, not the manipulative ones I'd grown up with. "We'll leave," she whispered. "Mum," Vivian shrieked, "you can't be serious." "We don't have a choice, sweetie." Mum reached for my hand across the table. I pulled back. "Julia, please." 15 days, I repeated. "I want you gone by then." "Where are we supposed to go?" Vivian demanded. "Not my problem." "I'll tell everyone what you did," she threatened, "how you destroyed this family." "Go ahead," I smiled. "Tell them how you stole from our parents, how you lied about Jameson, how you took and took until there was nothing left." She stormed out, slamming the door so hard a picture fell off the wall. The frame cracked. An old family photo, all of us smiling like we meant it. "I have something else," Zoe said, pulling out another document. "An offer from Highland Realty. They want to lease the property, triple the market rate." Mum's head snapped up. "Triple?" "For a corporate retreat venue," Zoe continued. "They'll take excellent care of the property." "The property?" Dad repeated dully. "Our dream home?" "My property," I corrected. "My home, and yes, I'm accepting their offer." "You're really doing this," Mum whispered. "You're really choosing money over family." "No, I'm choosing myself, for the first time in my life." They left one by one. Dad first, then Mom, finally Vivian, who couldn't resist one last parting shot. "I hope you're happy alone in your big empty house." After they were gone, Zoe turned to me. "You okay?" "No." I picked up the broken picture frame. "But I will be." "The Highland offer is real," she said. $9,000 a month, guaranteed income. You could quit nursing, go back to school." "Go to New York," I finished. "Take Darnell's job offer. Is that what you want?" I looked around the kitchen. The dream home that had cost me everything. "What I want," I said slowly, "is to never feel this way again." My phone buzzed. A text from Darnell. "Dinner tonight? We should celebrate." "Celebrate what?" I texted back. "Your freedom," he replied. Zoe gathered the signed papers. "Want me to file these now?" "Yes." I took one last look at the broken family photo. "It's done." Later that night, I met Darnell at our favourite restaurant. He raised his glass. "To new beginnings?" I thought about the empty house waiting for me, about the Highland Realty offer, about New York. "To karma," I said instead, "and consequences." "You're really leaving?" he asked. "As soon as Highland takes possession." I took a sip of wine. "I hear New York needs nurses too." He smiled. "And lawyers who understand medical cases." My phone buzzed again. Mom, of course. I declined the call. "They'll never forgive you," he said quietly. "I know." I set down my glass. But for the first time, I don't care. "To karma then," he agreed, clinking his glass against mine. "And to the Julia who finally chose herself." The moving truck pulled away, leaving Mom, Dad and Vivian standing on the sidewalk with their remaining possessions. They'd waited until the last possible day to leave. "Need help with those boxes?" I asked, not moving from the porch. "Like you care!" Vivian snapped, mascara running down her face. Mum stepped forward. "Julia, please, one last time, reconsider." "Why? So you can take advantage of me again?" "We made mistakes," Dad said. "Terrible ones, but we're still family." I pulled out Mum's letter from my pocket. Family doesn't write letters planning to use someone's love against them. Mum flinched. "I never meant for you to find that." "That's worse, Mum, that's so much worse." A sleek car pulled up, the Highland Realty executives, right on time. "Ms. Ramirez?" A woman in a sharp suit approached. "We're ready for the final walk-through." "Perfect," I turned to my family. "You should go now." "Where?" Vivian demanded. "Where are we supposed to go?" "Aunt Sarah offered you her guest house," I reminded them. "Maybe this time you'll appreciate someone's generosity." Dad started loading boxes into their car while Mum made one last attempt. "What about your things, your childhood memories?" "I took what matters." I gestured to the house. "The rest can burn." The Highland executive cleared her throat. "About that offer. We'd like to increase it. The property's potential is exceptional." I saw Mum's eyes widen at the implied amount. Even now she was calculating. "The papers are ready," I said. "Let's go inside." "Julia!" Vivienne called out as I turned away. I'm sorry about everything." I paused. "No, you're not. You're sorry you lost." Inside, Darnell waited with the contracts. He'd taken time off work to help with the transition. "They're really leaving," he said, watching through the window. "They have to. Finally." The Highland team moved through the house efficiently, making notes and plans. I signed where indicated, each signature feeling lighter than the last. "When do you start in New York?" the executive asked. "Next month. The nursing license transfer just came through." "And the law firm's waiting," Darnell added. My phone buzzed. "Zoe." "Done. Property transfer complete. You're officially the landlord of a corporate retreat." I walked through the house one last time, my footsteps echoing on the tile floors. In the kitchen, Mum had left her favourite mug, a final manipulation attempt. Outside, they were still loading their car. Vivienne sat on the curb, crying. Dad looked lost. Mum watched the house like she could will it back into her possession. I stepped onto the porch. "I found your mug." Mum's face lit up. "Oh, sweetie." I dropped it into the trash. "Don't forget anything else. You won't be allowed back in." "You're really this cold." Vivienne stood up. "After everything?" "After everything," I agreed. "That's exactly why." Dad closed the car trunk. "Where did we go wrong?" "When you taught me that love had to be earned," I said. "When you made me compete for basic decency. When you chose her over me every single time." "We didn't," Mum started. "The letter, Mum, you wrote it all down." They got into their car slowly, like they were still waiting for me to change my mind, to be the Julia they could use again. "I got into Princeton again," I called out as they started the engine. "They saved my spot. All these years they believed in me more than you did." Mum's face crumpled. Dad wouldn't look at me. Vivienne just stared straight ahead. I watched them drive away, feeling nothing but relief. Darnell came out to join me. "Ready?" "Almost." I walked back inside, through the empty rooms that had cost me so much. My footsteps echoed differently now, like freedom instead of prison bars. In the basement, I looked at my old room one last time, the windowless space they thought I deserved. "Never again," I whispered. Upstairs, the Highland team was already planning renovations. The house would become something new, something that had nothing to do with broken promises or family betrayal. "Now I'm ready," I told Darnell. He handed me a postcard of the Princeton campus. "No more basements." "No more earning, love," I agreed. We walked out together, leaving the door unlocked for the renovation crew. I didn't look back at the house. My house, but not my home. Never my home. "This isn't an ending," Darnell said as we reached his car. "No," I smiled, thinking of New York, of Princeton, of a future without manipulation disguised as love. "This is just the beginning." My phone stayed silent. No more texts from Mum. No more crying voicemails from Vivienne. No more guilt. Just freedom. Just me. Finally, wonderfully, completely me.
The small, velvet-covered box slid across the polished mahogany table, stopping just short of my wine glass. "Happy anniversary, Tinsley." Remington's voice, that familiar blend of boardroom boom and condescending drawl, filled the private dining room. His smile, as always when directed at me, was all teeth and no warmth. "My name is Tinsley, by the way," and this was supposed to be a celebration of 5 years married to his son, Flynn. Flynn, bless his perpetually anxious heart, offered a weak, supportive smile from across the table. His mother, Rose, gave a tight little nod, her eyes flicking from the box to my face, then quickly away. I picked up the box. It felt light. Too light. "Thank you, Remington." My voice was carefully neutral, a tone I'd perfected over half a decade. Inside, nestled on a bed of cheap satin, was a necklace. A thin silver chain with a single, tiny, cloudy-looking stone. It looked like something you'd win at a carnival. "Just a little something," Remington said, leaning back, steepling his fingers. "To mark the occasion. More than you deserve, I'd say. But we must keep up appearances, mustn't we?" A familiar chill snaked down my spine, quickly followed by a surge of heat. Flynn shifted uncomfortably, staring intently at his bread roll as if it held the secrets to the universe. He wouldn't say a word. He never did. That was Flynn. "It's lovely," I managed, forcing a smile that felt like cracking plaster. I even made a show of trying to fasten the clasp, fumbling deliberately. "Here, let me," Flynn mumbled, finally looking up, his hand brushing mine as he reached for it. His fingers were clumsy. "Don't bother, son." Remington waved a dismissive hand. "She can figure it out. Or not. Doesn't really matter, does it?" He chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. Rose sipped her water, her expression unreadable. 5 years. 5 years. Of moments just like this. The subtle digs, the outright insults, the constant, grinding insinuation that I was nothing more than a pretty face who'd lucked into their wealthy family. The gold digger label had been practically stitched to my forehead from day one. They never seemed to consider that I might have a thought in my head beyond which designer handbag to buy with Flynn's allowance. An allowance, by the way, that I rarely touched. Remington cleared his throat, signaling a shift in topic. "Speaking of appearances, the annual Shaw Corporation Gala is next month. This one is particularly crucial." He paused for a dramatic effect, his gaze sweeping over us. "We're courting a significant new investor, someone who could really change the game for us. Emiliano Kennedy, a very big fish." Flynn perked up. "Emiliano Kennedy? Wow, Dad, that's huge." "Indeed," Remington preened. "Everything needs to be perfect, flawless, which brings me to you, Tinsley." I braced myself. "I have a very important task for you," he continued, a patronizing glint in his eye. "The floral arrangements. I want something tasteful, elegant. You can handle that, can't you, dear? It'll give you something to focus on. Picking out flowers." That was my significant contribution. While they were wooing titans of industry, I was to be relegated to petals and stems. The dismissal was so blatant, so practiced, it was almost an art form. "Of course, Remington," I said, my smile unwavering. "I'd be happy to." "Good." He nodded, satisfied. "See that you don't make a mess of it." The rest of the dinner passed in a similar vein, Remington pontificating about his business acumen, Flynn nodding along eagerly, Rose making the occasional brief comment about the food or the wine. I ate slowly, methodically, the cheap necklace still in its box beside my plate, a constant, glittering reminder. They thought they knew me. They saw the quiet wife, the compliant daughter-in-law, the woman who smiled politely through their thinly veiled contempt. They had no idea who I really was, what I was capable of. They had no idea about the patience I'd cultivated, the slow, meticulous burn of a long game. A very long game. Later, as Flynn fumbled with his keys at our front door, I clutched the small velvet box in my hand. The metal of the cheap clasp felt cold against my palm. He was rambling about how important this Kennedy deal was for his father, for the company, for us. I tuned him out. Inside, I excused myself, heading straight for the powder room. The necklace looked even worse under the bright vanity lights. I dropped it onto the marble countertop with a small clink. My phone, tucked into my clutch, vibrated. I pulled it out. A single new message. It read, "Phase 1 complete. M." A small smile, a real one this time, played on my lips. I glanced at my reflection. The polite, demure mask was gone. In its place, something harder, something far more determined. Remington wanted me to pick out flowers. Oh, I'd give them flowers, all right. And so much more. The memory was sharp, like a shard of glass. We'd been married maybe 6 months. A dinner party at Remington and Rose's sprawling estate. I'd worn a new dress, something I'd saved up for, hoping to make a good impression. Is that new, Tinsley? Rose had asked, her voice dripping with a sweetness that never quite reached her eyes. Yes, I'd said, a little too eagerly. I got it at. Let me guess, Remington interrupted, swirling his brandy. One of those little boutiques that overcharges for polyester? He winked at one of his cronies, who let out a hearty, sycophantic laugh. Flynn, standing beside me, just coughed and took a sudden interest in a nearby painting. My cheeks burned. I'd wanted the ground to swallow me whole. Later that night, in the car, I'd whispered, Flynn, why didn't you say something? He'd sighed, that weary, put-upon sound I'd come to know so well. Tins, you know how Dad is. He doesn't mean anything by it. It's just his way. Don't be so sensitive. Sensitive? I'd repeated, my voice barely a breath. He humiliated me. Oh, come on, it wasn't that bad. Just try to fit in a bit more, okay? For me? He'd patted my hand, his eyes pleading. Fit in, as if I were a poorly chosen accessory he was trying to make work with his ensemble. That was the moment, the precise, crystallizing instant I knew Flynn would never be my partner, not really. He would always choose them, their approval, their comfort over mine. He was a product of their world, and I would forever be an outsider they tolerated. The realization didn't break me. It forged something new inside me, something cold and hard and resolute. If I wanted respect, if I wanted control over my own life, I'd have to take it. My grandmother, Nana Bia, had been a woman carved from granite and wit. She'd run her own small business, a bakery, from the age of 20 until she retired at 70, out-earning my grandfather and never letting anyone tell her what she couldn't do. When she passed, just before I met Flynn, she left me a modest inheritance. Not millions, but enough. Don't you dare let some man fritter this away, Tinsley. Her note, tucked in with the bank papers, had read. Invest it. Make it grow. Make yourself. I took her words to heart. I devoured books on investing, on market trends, on financial strategy. I started small, cautiously, learning the ropes. Nana B had always said, the best revenge is a life well lived and a bank account they can't touch. Then came Maya. We'd been inseparable in college, two nerds with big dreams. She was a coding genius with a mind like a steel trap. After graduation, she'd bounced around a few soul-crushing tech jobs. I called her one rainy afternoon, 2 years into my marriage, the sting of a particularly vicious comment from Remington still fresh. Maya, I'd said, I have an idea. A crazy one. We met for coffee. I laid it all out. My growing investment portfolio, my desire for something more, something mine. I want to build something, I told her. Something they can't touch, can't belittle. Maya listened, her dark eyes intense. When I finished, she grinned. So, you want to go into business? With me? What kind of business? Tech consulting, I said, but discreet. We focus on corporate intelligence, turnarounds for companies that are quietly failing. We find the rot, we fix it, or we advise on how to cut it out. Under the radar, highly effective. Skills I realized even then I was honing for a much more personal project. And so, Bellwether Solutions was born, a deliberately bland name for a company that was anything but. Maya was the tech brains. I was the strategist, the analyst, the one who could see the patterns in the chaos. We worked from our laptops, building a reputation for surgical precision and absolute discretion. Our client list grew, our profits soared, and no one in Flynn's world, least of all the Shaws, had a clue. They still saw me as Tinsley, the pretty, slightly dim wife, good for choosing floral arrangements. The memory of that conversation with Maya warmed me, even now, standing in the hallway of the house Flynn and I shared, the house that always felt more like theirs than ours. I was supposed to be researching florists. Instead, I was listening. Remington's voice, usually so confident, was tight with agitation. He was in his study, the door slightly ajar, on the phone. What do you mean he's getting cold feet? What rumors? This Kennedy deal has to happen. A pause. Then, louder, more frantic. Instability? What damned instability? Shawcorp is solid as a rock. Someone is spreading lies, that's what this is. Find out who, and fix it. He slammed the phone down. I heard him pacing, muttering. I leaned against the wall, a genuine smile touching my lips. The rumors of instability, carefully curated pieces of information, expertly leaked through untraceable channels. Maya was a true artist. Phase 2 was well underway. Emiliano Kennedy was indeed a very big fish, and it seemed he was starting to notice the murky water around Shaw Corporation. Just as planned. The file on my laptop was labeled Project Nightingale, a code name Maya and I had giggled over. It was anything but delicate. Inside were spreadsheets, internal memos I definitely wasn't supposed to have, and a detailed analysis of Shaw Corporation's glaring weaknesses. Remington ran the company like a feudal lord, rewarding loyalty over competence, clinging to outdated practices, and making multi-million-dollar decisions based on ego rather than evidence. Disgruntled mid-level managers, passed over for promotion in favor of Remington's golfing buddies, had been surprisingly willing to share information with an anonymous online researcher, Maya, of course. He's over-leveraged on the new European expansion, I murmured, tracing a line on a financial statement projected onto my home office wall. And this vanity project resort in the Caribbean, it's bleeding money. And every time there's a whisper of bad news or a missed earnings target, the stock takes a little dip, Maya said, her voice crisp through my AirPods. We were on one of our late-night strategy calls, which is when our anonymous little investment group, Phoenix Holdings, just happens to snap up a few more shares. Phoenix Holdings, I repeated, a small, satisfied smile playing on my lips, rising from the ashes. It felt appropriate. For years, every bonus Bellwether Solutions earned, every successful investment I made outside of it, had been funneled into Phoenix. Slowly, patiently, we were accumulating. The next morning, I was in a sleek, minimalist downtown office. Jared, my lawyer, looked up as I entered. He was sharp, impeccably dressed, and had a mind like a steel trap. When I'd first approached him a year ago, outlining my long-term intentions for Shaw Corporation, he'd raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. That's ambitious, Tinsley. Ambitious or overdue? I'd countered. Now, he just nodded, a flicker of respect in his eyes. The framework is solid, he said, tapping a thick document on his desk. We've structured Phoenix Holdings to be airtight. When you're ready to make the move, it will be swift and legal. He paused. You understand the implications, Tinsley? This isn't just business. This is war of a sort. I understand perfectly, Jared, I replied, my voice calm. They've been waging a quiet war against me for years. It's time I returned fire. My resolve was absolute. The years of quiet humiliation, of being underestimated and dismissed, had forged an armor around my heart, an armor made of cold, hard cash, and even colder determination. That Sunday was the obligatory family brunch at Remington and Rose's. The air was thick with unspoken tension. Remington was unusually quiet, picking at his food, his brow furrowed. The rumors about Emiliano Kennedy's hesitation were clearly taking their toll. Flynn, ever the dutiful son, kept trying to jolly him up with talk of golf handicaps and stock market optimism, his efforts falling painfully flat. Rose, however, was different. She was watching me, not with her usual cool disdain, but with an intensity that was unsettling. Her gaze followed me as I offered to help clear the plates, as I made polite small talk with a distant cousin. It wasn't overtly hostile, but it wasn't friendly either. It was appraising, as if she were seeing me for the first time, or perhaps seeing something she hadn't noticed before. I met her gaze a few times, offering a bland, pleasant smile. She didn't smile back, just held my eyes for a beat too long before looking away. It was a strange, almost imperceptible shift, but I filed it away. Later that evening, Flynn found me in our walk-in closet, ostensibly looking for something to wear to the gala. He held up a dress, a deep emerald green silk, a beautiful gown I'd bought for a charity event 2 years prior. You should wear this to the gala, he said, his voice earnest. Remember this one? Dad made that joke about you looking like you were auditioning for The Wizard of Oz because of the color. He chuckled, oblivious. He'd find it amusing if you wore it again. Show you're a good sport. I stared at the dress. I remembered the joke. I remembered the snickers from his parents' friends. I remembered the way Flynn had laughed along, a little too loudly. Amusing. He thought his father publicly mocking me was amusing. My fingers tightened on the hanger I was holding. You think so, Flynn? I asked, my voice dangerously soft. Yeah, it'll be great. Break the ice, you know. He beamed, clearly proud of his helpful suggestion. The fire that had been simmering inside me for years flared, hot and fierce. This wasn't just about business anymore. This was about dignity. my dignity, and I was going to reclaim it no matter the cost. Thank you for the suggestion, Flynn, I said, my voice smooth as glass. I'll certainly consider it. He smiled, satisfied, and wandered off, whistling. I looked at the emerald green dress, then at my reflection in the mirror. Oh, there would be a show at the gala, all right, but it wouldn't be the one anyone was expecting. The atmosphere at Shaw Corporation headquarters in the week leading up to the gala was like a tautly wound spring. You could practically taste the anxiety in the air. Remington, usually so bombastic and self-assured, was a whirlwind of nervous energy, snapping at underlings and pacing his office like a caged lion. The whispers about Emiliano Kennedy's potential investment, or lack thereof, had grown louder, more persistent. I, of course, was the picture of serene domesticity. I made several trips to the office, ostensibly to discuss floral arrangements with Remington's increasingly frazzled assistant, Haley. Haley was young, ambitious, and utterly terrified of her boss. She also possessed an almost pathological need to be liked and to be seen as in the know. Mr. Shaw is just under a lot of pressure, Tinsley, Haley confided one afternoon, her voice hushed as she nervously shredded a paper napkin in the staff canteen where I'd coincidentally bumped into her. This Kennedy deal is everything. He's been on the phone nonstop, trying to reassure him. Oh, I'm sure it will all work out, I said, offering what I hoped was a sympathetic, if slightly vacant smile. Remington always gets what he wants, doesn't he? I stirred my coffee, feigning disinterest. It must be fascinating working so closely with him on such important matters. Haley preened. It is. I mean, it's stressful, but I'm learning so much. She leaned in conspiratorially. Between you and me, Mr. Kennedy's people have been asking a lot of questions about everything: financials, future plans, leadership stability. Leadership stability? I echoed, widening my eyes innocently. Is there a problem? Oh, no, not really. Haley backtracked quickly. Just, you know, due diligence. Mr. Shaw has it all under control. But her eyes darted nervously towards Remington's office door, betraying her unease. Perfect. My carefully constructed gold digger persona, the one they'd all so readily accepted, was proving to be an invaluable asset. No one suspected the vapid daughter-in-law of having any interest in, let alone understanding of, corporate strategy. I was invisible, and in my invisibility, I saw everything. The nervous glances between executives, the hushed conversations in hallways, the discarded printouts in recycling bins. Each little piece of intel was relayed to Maya. The dossier on your proposed vision for the company has been delivered to Kennedy's primary advisor, Maya confirmed during one of our encrypted calls. Anonymously, of course, contrasting your clear, forward-thinking strategy with Remington's current, let's call it chaotic improvisation. Excellent, I said. We weren't just highlighting Remington's failings, we were presenting a viable, compelling alternative, an alternative headed by someone they didn't even know existed in a corporate sense. The day before the gala, Haley called me, her voice practically vibrating with excitement and self-importance. Tinsley, oh my gosh, you will not believe the latest. What is it, Haley? I asked, injecting a note of bored curiosity into my tone. I was, in fact, meticulously reviewing the final share purchase agreements with Jared via video conference, my laptop screen hidden from Flynn's view. Mr. Shaw is planning a huge surprise announcement at the gala tomorrow night, she gushed. He just finalized it, a new succession plan. I paused, my pen hovering over the signature line. A succession plan? Yes, he wants to show everyone, especially Mr. Kennedy, that Shaw Corp has a strong future. He's going to name his successor. Haley paused for dramatic effect. And get this, it's not Flynn. My blood ran cold for a split second, then a strange sort of calm settled over me. Of course, he wouldn't name Flynn. That would mean acknowledging Flynn had some capability. Oh? I kept my voice even. No, it's one of his nephews, I think. Daniel? Or David? One of the ones from the Boston branch. Someone young, dynamic, he said. He wants to make it clear the company is moving forward, but with his bloodline firmly in control. He even said something about it being a way to ensure the family legacy isn't diluted. Haley giggled. I think he meant you, no offense. He wants to make sure Flynn is, well, sidelined, and that there's no question of you having any real influence ever. No offense, as if I were a mild inconvenience rather than a person he was actively, publicly planning to humiliate further, along with his own son. The sheer arrogance, the casual cruelty of it was breathtaking. He wasn't just trying to impress Kennedy, he was using the gala as another opportunity to put me, and by extension Flynn, firmly in our place. Wow, Haley, I said, my voice a perfect imitation of breathless surprise. That is big news. Thank you for letting me know. You're always so on top of things. I try, she chirped, pleased with herself. I ended the call. Jared was watching me, his expression unreadable. Everything all right, Tinsley? I looked down at the document on my screen. The final block purchase of Shaw Corporation shares. Enough to tip the scales. Enough for 51%. A slow, dangerous smile spread across my face. Everything, I said, is perfect. I clicked Authorize. The confirmation flashed on the screen. Transaction complete. I picked up my phone and sent a text to Maya. Showtime. The ballroom glittered. Chandeliers dripped crystals like frozen tears, casting a dazzling, almost painfully bright light over the assembled crowd. Hundreds of people, the cream of the city's business elite, mingled, their laughter a little too loud, their smiles a little too fixed. It was a masterclass in forced joviality, an ocean of expensive silks and tailored suits bobbing on a current of underlying panic. Shaw Corporation's annual gala was always an event, but tonight the stakes felt astronomically high. Remington was in his element, or at least a frantic imitation of it. He moved through the room like a shark, all predatory smiles and firm handshakes, his eyes constantly scanning, searching. He was looking for Emiliano Kennedy, the elusive investor who held the company's future in his well-manicured hands. But Kennedy, it seemed, was fashionably late, or perhaps strategically absent. Flynn hovered near his father, a pale imitation of Remington's forced confidence. He kept shooting me anxious glances, as if my mere presence was a potential landmine. I'd chosen my dress carefully, not the emerald green he'd suggested, but a column of midnight blue silk, elegant, understated, and utterly forgettable, or so I hoped they'd think. I offered him a serene smile each time he looked my way, a smile that promised absolutely nothing. Tinsley, darling, you look presentable. The wife of one of Remington's board members, a woman whose face was pulled so tight she looked perpetually surprised, air kissed me, her perfume cloying. Thank you, Eleanor, I said. You look lovely as always. Yes, well, one tries. She sighed, her gaze sweeping over me dismissively before she moved on to someone she clearly deemed more important. The usual condescending remarks washed over me, barely registering. Years of practice had made me adept at deflecting them, at letting them slide off my carefully constructed facade of polite indifference. Tonight, they felt different. Tonight, they were fuel. Each little slight, each patronizing comment was another log on the pyre I was about to ignite. Remington, after a particularly animated and likely fruitless conversation with a minor city councilman he was trying to impress, grabbed a fresh glass of champagne from a passing tray. He'd had a few already. A telltale flush was creeping up his neck. He spotted a group of older, more conservative investors, the kind who still believed a woman's place was in the home, or at least not in the boardroom. An idea, a truly terrible, Remington-esque idea, visibly sparked in his eyes. He was going to make a point. And I apparently was going to be his prop. He strode towards the small, elegantly draped stage at the front of the ballroom, tapping a fork against his glass to command attention. The chatter gradually died down. Friends, colleagues, esteemed guests, Remington began, his voice amplified by the microphone booming through the suddenly silent room. Welcome, welcome to what I know will be a memorable evening. He paused, beaming, clearly relishing the spotlight. He spoke for several minutes, a rambling monologue about Shaw Corporation's glorious past and its even more glorious future, conveniently glossing over the current uncertainties. Flynn watched him with a mixture of pride and apprehension. Rose, seated at a prominent table near the front, wore her usual stoic expression, though I thought I detected a flicker of something weary in her eyes. Then, Remington's gaze found me, standing quietly near the edge of the crowd. A smirk, ugly and triumphant, spread across his face. He was emboldened by the champagne, by the captive audience, by his own inflated sense of importance. He was about to perform for what he believed was a traditionalist audience, eager to see a patriarch put his flighty daughter-in-law in her place. And, he continued, his voice taking on a syrupy, condescending tone, I'd like to give a special thank you to my lovely daughter-in-law, Tinsley. All eyes in the room swiveled towards me. I could feel the heat of their collective gaze. Always so supportive, always there, even if he paused, letting the insinuation hang in the air. It's just by looking pretty. A smattering of polite, uncomfortable titters rippled through the room. My blood, which had been simmering, turned to ice, then instantly to molten lava. This was it, the moment I'd both dreaded and anticipated. Remington reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his wallet. With a flourish, he extracted a bill, a 20. He held it up, displaying it to the crowd as if it were a prize. Then, with a sneer that twisted his features into a grotesque mask of contempt, he looked directly at me and said, his voice dripping with disdain, "Here you go, dear. Go buy yourself something pretty, little gold digger." He flicked the $20 bill. It fluttered through the air, a pathetic, insulting green rectangle, and landed at my feet. The room erupted, not in outrage, but in a wave of snickers, nervous laughter, and a few outright guffaws from his closest cronies. They thought it was hilarious. A powerful man, putting his upstart, gold-digging daughter-in-law in her place. My heart hammered against my ribs, a wild drumbeat of fury and exhilaration. This was more than I could have ever hoped for. He'd handed me the perfect opening, gift-wrapped in his own arrogance. The laughter, sharp and cruel, echoed in the sudden, ringing silence that followed Remington's pronouncement. It felt like a physical blow, but I didn't flinch. I didn't cry. I didn't even blink. Years of enduring their casual cruelty had forged an iron composure, and tonight it was my shield and my weapon. Slowly, deliberately, I bent down and picked up the $20 bill. The paper felt flimsy, almost insulting in my fingers. I smoothed out the creases, my movements unhurried, graceful. Every eye in that vast ballroom was on me. I could feel their curiosity, their pity, their morbid anticipation. What would the pretty little gold digger do now? Burst into tears? Flee in shame? Flynn looked like he'd seen a ghost. His face was ashen, his mouth agape. He took a hesitant step towards me, then stopped, his eyes darting towards his father. He looked utterly, hopelessly trapped. As always, he said nothing. His silence was a familiar wound, but tonight it barely registered. He was irrelevant. Remington, on the stage, beamed. He puffed out his chest, basking in what he clearly perceived as a moment of absolute triumph. He'd put me in my place, publicly, definitively. He'd shown everyone who was boss. He was the king, and I was just a court jester, good for a laugh. A strange sense of calm washed over me, a profound stillness in the eye of the storm. This was it, the culmination of 5 years of meticulous planning, of silent suffering, of carefully hoarded resentment. All of it, every insult, every dismissal, every condescending smile had led to this single, perfect moment. A surge of power, cold and exhilarating, coursed through my veins. I straightened up, the $20 bill held lightly in my hand. I didn't look at Flynn. I didn't look at the shocked faces in the crowd. My gaze was fixed on Remington, still preening on the stage. Then I began to walk. Not away, not towards the exit in a storm of humiliated tears as they undoubtedly expected. I walked towards the stage. Towards him. My heels clicked softly on the polished marble floor, the sound unnaturally loud in the suddenly hushed room. The spotlight, which had been on Remington, wavered, then found me, following my slow, deliberate progress. The whispers died. The nervous titters ceased. A thick, expectant silence descended, heavy and suffocating. They were waiting for the drama, the tears, the inevitable retreat of the humiliated wife. I could feel their collective breath held in suspense. I saw Rose's face, her expression unreadable, a statue carved from ice and regret. I saw Haley, Remington's assistant, her eyes wide with a mixture of horror and a dawning, horrified comprehension. She knew about the succession plan. She thought this was just another layer of Remington's cruelty. She had no idea. I reached the low steps leading up to the stage. I ascended them, one by one, my movements measured, my expression serene. Remington watched me, a flicker of confusion, then annoyance crossing his face. What was I doing? Was I going to plead? To make a scene? I reached the podium, the one he'd just used to deliver his grand pronouncements and his petty insults. I adjusted the microphone, the slight metallic squeak echoing in the silence. I took a breath. Then I looked directly at Remington, my father-in-law. The man who had systematically tried to crush my spirit for 5 long years. The man who thought I was nothing more than a pretty bauble, a drain on his family's fortune. My voice, when I spoke, was clear, steady, and amplified, carrying to every corner of the glittering ballroom. "Thank you, Dad," I said, my tone perfectly even, almost conversational. I held up the $20 bill. "I'll add it to the fortune I used to buy controlling interest in this company." The silence that followed my words was absolute, a vacuum that sucked all the air from the ballroom. Then, chaos. Remington's jaw didn't just drop, it looked like it had become unhinged. The ruddy color drained from his face, leaving him a sickly, mottled gray. His eyes, moments before glinting with smug triumph, were now wide with disbelief, then a dawning, horrified comprehension. Flynn, standing frozen by the side of the stage, turned a ghostly white. He swayed slightly, his hand reaching out to grip the velvet rope of a stanchion as if for support. His mouth opened and closed, but no sound emerged. The nervous titters that had greeted Remington's insult were replaced by a collective gasp, a wave of shock that rippled through the assembled guests. People stared, first at me, then at Remington, then back at me, their expressions a mixture of stunned disbelief and dawning excitement. This was a drama far juicier than any they could have anticipated. I let the pandemonium wash over me for a beat, a conductor savoring the sudden, crashing crescendo of her orchestra. Then, I continued, my voice still calm, still carrying authority over the rising murmur. "As the new majority shareholder of Shaw Corporation," I announced, my gaze sweeping across the stunned faces, "I have a few immediate announcements regarding the company's new direction and leadership." Right on cue, as if summoned by my words, the grand ballroom doors at the far end of the room swung open. Jared, my lawyer, strode in, his expression cool and professional. He carried a sleek leather briefcase, but he wasn't alone. Walking beside him, looking impeccably tailored and exuding an aura of quiet power, was Emiliano Kennedy, the mystery investor, the man Remington had been so desperate to impress. A fresh wave of gasps and excited whispers swept through the room. Remington stumbled back a step, his eyes fixed on Kennedy as if he were seeing an apparition. He looked like he'd been poleaxed. "Mr. Kennedy," I said, my voice ringing with newfound confidence, was so impressed with the detailed business plan and vision for the future that my team presented to him, a plan, I might add, that prioritizes innovation, fiscal responsibility, and ethical governance, that he decided to back a real visionary. I gestured towards the head table, which had been reserved for Remington and his most important guests. "Mr. Kennedy, please, take your seat." Emiliano Kennedy inclined his head towards me, a small, almost imperceptible smile playing on his lips. He then calmly walked to the head table and took the seat that had, moments before, been intended for Remington's guest of honor. The symbolism was not lost on anyone. Remington was sputtering now, his face contorted in a mask of rage and disbelief. This is outrageous, preposterous. She can't. "Oh, I can, Remington," I said, my voice dropping the dad with a chilling finality. "And I have." I turned back to the audience. "My first directives as CEO will be as follows: an immediate full forensic audit of all company financials, a comprehensive review of all executive positions and their performance, and an immediate halt to all non-essential vanity projects, including the ill-advised Caribbean resort development." Flynn finally found his voice a pathetic, pleading whine. Tinsley, what are you doing? Please, we can talk about this." He started to move towards the stage, his hands outstretched. I didn't even look at him. I simply raised a hand, a small dismissive gesture that stopped him in his tracks. He was a ghost at his own father's corporate funeral. Remington, meanwhile, was making strangled, choking sounds. He clutched at his chest, his face turning an alarming shade of purple. A few concerned onlookers started to move towards him, and then, amidst the escalating chaos, a figure detached herself from the stunned onlookers near the front. Rose. She walked towards me, her face pale, but her expression strangely resolute. I braced myself for an onslaught of maternal fury, for accusations, for a defense of her husband. Instead, she stopped before me and quietly, almost surreptitiously, handed me a small, worn leather-bound ledger. Her hand was trembling slightly. "He was running it into the ground with secret debts, Tinsley," she said, her voice barely a whisper, audible only to me. "Gambling debts, bad investments he hid from everyone. This proves it." Her eyes, when they met mine, held a strange mixture of defeat, despair, and, was that relief? Do what you must. Then, without another word, Roseshaw turned and walked away, disappearing into the stunned, murmuring crowd, a queen abdicating a crumbling throne. I looked down at the ledger in my hand, then back at Remington, who was now slumped in a chair, being fanned by a concerned waiter, looking pale, diminished, and utterly broken. I glanced at Flynn, a shattered man, his world imploded. A cold, hard certainty settled deep within me. There was triumph. Yes, a fierce, burning triumph. But more than that, there was the undeniable, irrefutable knowledge. I did this. I had taken everything. The transition was swift, brutal, and utterly effective. The forensic audit, guided by the damning evidence in Rose's little black ledger, unearthed a cesspool of Remington's secret dealings, fraudulent expense reports, offshore accounts siphoning company funds, and a mountain of personal gambling debts camouflaged as corporate investments. The man hadn't just been running Shaw Corporation, he'd been bleeding it dry to fund his increasingly reckless lifestyle. The authorities were notified. His downfall was spectacular and very public. His legacy, once a monument to arrogant success, was now a pile of smoldering rubble. Flynn, predictably, served me with divorce papers within days. I signed them without a moment's hesitation, a wave of profound relief washing over me. His attempts at reconciliation had been pathetic, a desperate, fumbling series of voicemails and texts alternating between blaming me for destroying his family and pleading for a second chance for us. There was no us. There never really had been. He was left with nothing but his parents' tarnished name and the bitter taste of his own spinelessness. A social pariah, stripped of his inheritance and his illusions. Rose vanished from the public eye. I offered her a modest but fair settlement, enough for her to live comfortably, which she accepted through her lawyers with a quiet, dignified silence. There were no recriminations, no further contact. It was as if a heavy curtain had fallen and she had simply stepped behind it, seeking a somber peace away from the wreckage. My new office, Remington's old domain, offered a panoramic view of the city. The skyline glittered, a testament to ambition and power. My ambition. My power. Shaw Corporation was already undergoing a radical transformation, starting with its name. Phoenix Global was stenciled on the frosted glass of my new door. Maya, sharp and brilliant as ever, was my chief operating officer, her office just down the hall. Emiliano Kennedy, true to his word, had become a vital, supportive board member and an unexpected mentor, his insights invaluable as we navigated the choppy waters of corporate restructuring. The revenge had been absolute, a clean, surgical strike. But sitting there in the vast leather chair that still faintly smelled of Remington's expensive cologne, I felt something else. Not regret, never that, but a certain stark clarity. The fight had changed me, undeniably. It had chipped away at the softer edges, replaced them with something harder, more resilient. There was an isolation to this new altitude, a constant vigilance required. Trust was a commodity I now dispensed with extreme caution. My phone buzzed on the polished desk. I glanced at the caller ID. Maya. Big news, she said, her voice crackling with energy, no preamble. That acquisition target we were tracking in the renewable energy sector, their board just signaled they're open to a serious discussion. They're impressed with what we're doing at Phoenix. A genuine smile, the first truly unburdened one I'd felt in what seemed like an eternity, spread across my face. Tell me more, Maya. As she detailed the potential, my gaze drifted to a small, unassuming box on the corner of my otherwise clear desk. It had arrived by courier that morning, forwarded from my old address. Inside, nestled amongst some forgotten trinkets from my pre-Flynn life, was a letter. It was from Nana Bie, her familiar, spidery handwriting on faded stationery. I'd found it tucked into an old investment primer she'd given me years ago, a note I'd somehow overlooked until now. Dearest Tinsley. It read, dated shortly after I'd told her about my first small successful stock market venture. Never let small men or small minds define your worth. Your mind is your greatest asset. Build your empire, one brick at a time, and make damn sure it's on your own terms. They'll underestimate you. Let them. It'll be their undoing, not yours. A poignant affirmation, a voice from the past, echoing the truths I'd fought so hard to reclaim. The cost of this victory had been a toxic family, a marriage built on lies and illusions. But the gain? The gain was myself, unfettered, unapologetic. So, what do you think? Maya's voice pulled me back to the present, to the exciting, challenging future stretching out before me. Are we going for it? I leaned back in my chair, the city lights twinkling like a million possibilities. The revenge had been sweet, a necessary catharsis. But this, building something new, something lasting, something on my own terms, this would be even sweeter. Absolutely, Maya, I said, my voice firm, alive with ambition. Let's build an empire. The first sign something was wrong came when I found my bedroom door slightly ajar. I always close it fully, a habit from growing up with a sister who thought privacy was optional. The second sign was the faint scent of my mother's signature perfume lingering in the air. Chanel number 5 mixed with desperation. My name is Taylor, and I just inherited nearly everything my grandfather owned, which, as it turns out, was a lot more than anyone expected. The will, reading earlier that day, had been a masterclass in barely concealed rage. I can still see my mother's perfectly manicured nails digging into the leather armrest, leaving little half-moon indentations as the lawyer read out the details. To my granddaughter Taylor, I leave the majority of my estate, including the main residence, summer properties, and investment portfolios. My sister Soleil's face had turned an interesting shade of purple. Dad just stared straight ahead, jaw clenched so tight I thought his teeth might shatter. But Mom, she was the real show. Her smile never wavered, even as her eyes turned to ice. Darling, we're so happy for you, she'd said afterward, pulling me into a hug that felt more like a python's embrace. Though we are a bit concerned about the responsibility. You've always been so sensitive. Now, standing in my childhood bedroom, I methodically checked my drawers. They'd been careful, but not careful enough. The stack of letters from Grandpa Harold was slightly out of order. My journal had been moved half an inch to the left. They were looking for something, probably evidence of the instability they'd been trying to pin on me since I was 15. I pulled out my phone and called Cruz, my lawyer and the only friend I truly trusted. They've been in my room, I said when he picked up. Already? Damn, they're moving fast. You sure? Unless my mother's expensive perfume suddenly grew legs and walked in here by itself? Yeah, I'm sure. Remember what we discussed, Cruz said. Document everything. Take photos. Don't confront them yet. I know. I walked to my window, watching my sister's Mercedes pull into the driveway. But something bigger is coming. I can feel it. Your grandfather warned us they might try something like this. That's why we prepared. He was right. Grandpa Harold hadn't just left me his money, he'd left me his wisdom too. Watch them closely after I'm gone, he'd told me during our last private conversation. Your mother especially, she'll try to take it all back. She always does. A soft knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. Taylor? Sweetie? Soleil's voice dripped with artificial concern. Mom and Dad want to talk to you about setting up some financial advisors. You know, to help you manage everything. I took a deep breath, slipped my phone into my pocket, and opened the door. My sister stood there in her designer outfit, perfect makeup, and practiced smile. The family favorite. The stable one. Sure, I said, matching her fake warmth. Let me just freshen up first. Of course. She touched my arm gently. We're all here for you. You know that, right? We just want what's best for you. I watched her walk away, her heels clicking against the hardwood floors. In the distance, I could hear my parents' voices in the study, speaking in urgent whispers, plotting. They thought I was the weak one, the black sheep, the emotional basket case they could manipulate and control. They had no idea I'd been recording everything since the moment Grandpa Harold died, no idea that Cruz and I had already anticipated their every move. I pulled out my phone again and sent Cruz a quick text. It's starting. Get everything ready. His response came immediately. Already on it. Don't let them see you sweat. I looked at myself in the mirror, straightened my shoulders, and practiced my own version of Mom's perfect smile. They wanted to play games? Fine. But this time, I was writing the rules. Walking down the hallway toward the study, I could hear Mom's voice getting clearer. We need to move quickly before she realizes. She stopped abruptly when I opened the door. 3 pairs of eyes turned to me, all wearing identical masks of concern. Taylor, honey. Mom said, patting the seat next to her. Come sit. We need to talk about your future. I sat down, noting how they had positioned themselves around me. Mom to my left, Dad blocking the door, Soleil perched on the armrest like a vulture. Of course, I said sweetly. I'm all ears. Let them think they had me cornered. Let them think I was still that scared little girl they could control. They were about to learn what Grandpa Harold had known all along. I wasn't just his heir, I was his revenge. I wasn't supposed to hear the phone call, but old houses have thin walls, and my sister never learned to speak quietly when she's angry. Mom, she's not falling for it. Soleil's voice drifted through the vent connecting our rooms. She just sits there with that stupid smile, acting all perfect and composed. I pressed my ear against the wall, phone recording in hand. After 3 days of their concerned family routine, I'd installed a small camera in the hallway and started recording every conversation I could catch. Patience, darling. Mom's voice crackled through the speaker. Dr. Wagner says we need documented instances of erratic behavior. Just keep pushing her buttons. You know how to get under her skin. What if she actually keeps it together? Then we create situations where she can't. I've already spoken to Roberto about increasing her medication dosage. A few extra pills in her evening tea should do the trick. My blood ran cold. They were planning to drug me. Again. Memories of my teenage years flooded back, feeling dizzy, confused, being told I was having episodes I couldn't remember. I texted Cruz. Need to meet. Now. 20 minutes later, I was sitting in his office downtown, playing back the recording. Jesus, Cruz muttered, running a hand through his hair. They're actually going to try it. Your grandfather was right. Who's this Dr. Wagner they mentioned? Cruz typed something into his computer. Give me a minute. Here we go. Elena Wagner. But Taylor, she's not a doctor. She's an actress, mostly small theater productions, a few local commercials. Haven't seen any work from her in the last year, though. I leaned forward to look at the screen. The headshot showed a woman in her 50s trying hard to look 40. They hired a fake psychiatrist? Looks like it. Want to guess who's paying her rent now? Cruz showed me some bank statements. Your father's been making monthly deposits to her account since last week. My phone buzzed. A text from Soleil. Where are you? Mom's worried sick. You can't just disappear like this. 3 more messages followed in quick succession. This is exactly what we're worried about. You're acting so unstable. Please come home before we have to call someone. They're building their paper trail, Cruz said, reading over my shoulder. Every text, every concerned phone call, it's all ammunition for their case. Then let's build our own. I stood up and started pacing. The cameras I installed caught Mom going through my room. We have the recording of them planning to drug me. What else do we need? We need them to reveal their whole plan, preferably on camera with witnesses. Cruz pulled out a legal pad. And I think I know how we can do it. He outlined his idea. It was bold, dangerous even, but it might just work. You'll need to play along, he warned. Let them think their plan is working. Can you do that? I thought about all the years of gaslighting, the manipulation, the way they'd made me doubt my own sanity. Oh, I can do better than that. I'll give them exactly what they want. The perfect victim. Back at home, I found Mom waiting in the kitchen. Where have you been? She rushed to hug me, her voice pitched high with artificial worry. We've been so concerned. Sorry, I mumbled, making my hands shake slightly as I reached for a glass of water. I just needed some air. Everything feels so overwhelming. Her eyes lit up at my apparent vulnerability. Oh, sweetie, that's exactly what we've been worried about. You know, we have this wonderful doctor friend who'd love to talk with you. Maybe. I let my voice quiver. Maybe you're right. I haven't been feeling quite myself. Of course we're right, darling. She pressed a cup of tea into my hands. Here, drink this. It'll help calm your nerves. I pretended to sip it, watching her watch me. When she turned to the sink, I poured it into the nearby plant. I think I'll go lie down, I said, making sure to stumble slightly as I stood. Good idea, sweetheart. We'll talk more when you're feeling better. In my room, I pulled out my phone and texted Cruz. They took the bait. Time for phase 2. His response came quickly. Officer Bennett is on board. How soon do you want to do this? I thought about the tea, about how easily they'd tried to drug me again, about all the years of making me think I was crazy. Tell Bennett to be ready. We're doing this tomorrow. I could hear Mom on the phone in her study, probably calling Dr. Wagner to set everything up. Let them think they were in control. Let them think they'd won. Tomorrow they'd learn what real instability looks like. The family dinner was Mom's idea. Just a quiet evening with our dear friend Elena, she'd said, smoothing her silk blouse. She's so looking forward to meeting you. I sat at our massive dining room table, watching the woman who called herself Dr. Wagner delicately cut into her salmon. She was good, I'll give her that. The wire-rimmed glasses, the measured movements, the way she casually dropped psychiatric terms into conversation. She'd clearly done her homework. Taylor, Elena said, dabbing her lips with a napkin, your mother tells me you've been feeling overwhelmed lately. That's perfectly natural after such a significant life change. Oh, yes, I said, letting my hand tremble as I reached for my water glass. Everything feels so intense. I knocked the glass over slightly, spilling some water. Oh, I'm so sorry. It's fine, sweetie. Mom jumped in, shooting Elena a meaningful look. These little accidents have been happening more frequently, haven't they? Soleil nodded eagerly. Just yesterday, she was talking to herself in the garden. I heard her saying the strangest things about cameras and revenge. I had been talking to Cruz on my phone's earpiece, but they didn't need to know that. Fascinating, Elena murmured, scribbling in her little notebook. And how long have you been experiencing these episodes? Episodes? I widened my eyes, channeling my inner drama student. Is that what these are? I thought I was just tired. Taylor has always been delicate, Dad chimed in, speaking for the first time. Ever since she was a teenager, we've tried so hard to help her. By drugging my tea? The words slipped out before I could stop them. Everyone froze. Elena recovered first. What makes you say that, Taylor? Oh, I don't know. I started giggling, high and nervous. Sometimes I taste something funny, and then everything gets fuzzy. Like last night. Mom's fork clattered against her plate. Taylor, sweetheart, you're confused. Nobody's drugging you. But I heard you and Soleil talking about my medication. Through the vent, you said to put extra pills. You see? Soleil interrupted, voice thick with fake concern. These paranoid delusions, she's getting worse. Elena leaned forward, all professional concern. Taylor, how would you feel about coming to my office tomorrow? We could talk more privately about these concerns. Your office? I smiled sweetly. You mean the community theater on 7th Street? The color drained from Elena's face. Mom's hand tightened around her wine glass. I'm not sure what you mean, Elena stammered. Oh, I saw you there yesterday. That monologue you were practicing, what was it? To be or not to be? Very moving, though I prefer your current performance. I gestured around the table. The concerned psychiatrist role really suits you. Taylor? Mom's voice cracked like a whip. That's enough! Is it? I pulled out my phone. Because I have some interesting recordings I'd like to share, like the one where you and Soleil discuss having me declared mentally unfit, or the one where Dad arranges payments to our guest here. Dad stood up so quickly his chair fell backward. Give me that phone! Roberto, sit down, Mom hissed. Taylor's clearly having another episode. Elena, please tell me you're documenting this. Elena was already gathering her things, panic clear in her eyes. I should go. But the show's just getting started, I said, pressing a button on my phone. In fact, our audience is already here. On cue, Cruz walked in through the front door, followed by Officer Bennett and 2 other police officers. Mom's face went from angry red to ghostly white in seconds. What is this? She whispered. This, Cruz said, pulling out some papers, is a sting operation. Elena Wagner, you're under arrest for practicing medicine without a license and conspiracy to commit fraud. You can't prove anything, Soleil shrieked, but her voice shook. I stood up slowly, enjoying the moment. Actually, we can. Every conversation, every planning session, every attempt to drug me, it's all recorded. The cameras I installed caught everything. Cameras? Mom's voice was barely audible. Grandpa Harold taught me well, I said, watching the officers handcuff Elena. He always said the best defense is a good offense. Oh, and Mom? That tea you've been serving me? I had it tested. The lab results make for interesting reading. Dad lunged for me, but Officer Bennett caught him. Don't make this worse for yourself, sir. I walked over to my mother, who sat frozen in her chair. You know what the funny thing is? All these years you've been calling me unstable, paranoid, delusional. But I'm not the one who just got caught trying to frame their own daughter. Tears streaked her perfect makeup. We were only trying to protect you. No, I said softly. You were trying to protect yourselves. And now everyone's going to know exactly what kind of protection that was. As the officers led Elena away, I could hear Soleil sobbing in the background, but all I felt was a cold, clear sense of satisfaction. The game wasn't over yet, but I'd just won the first round. The old, leather-bound journal fell open in my lap, its pages yellow with age. Ingrid, my grandfather's housekeeper for 30 years, had pressed it into my hands after the police left. Your grandfather wanted you to have this, she'd said, her weathered hands trembling, but only after you'd proven yourself strong enough to face what's inside. Now, sitting in Grandpa Harold's study, I read his careful handwriting by lamplight. March 15th, 2008. Laurel took 2.3 mallards from the family trust today. When confronted, she blamed Taylor, 15, for forging signatures. The girl was drugged and confused when questioned. I know my daughter is lying, but I can't prove it without destroying the family. My hands shook as memories flooded back. That spring when everything went fuzzy. Mom insisting I'd done terrible things I couldn't remember. The special tea that made the world spin. My phone buzzed. Cruz calling. Taylor, you need to see this, he said without preamble. I've been digging through your grandfather's old financial records. There's a pattern of unauthorized withdrawals going back decades. I know. I'm reading about it now. I flipped through more pages. Grandpa knew. He knew everything. That's not all. Your mother had you committed for 3 days in 2008. The records were sealed because you were a minor, but I found them. The room tilted sideways. What? It gets worse. The doctor who signed the commitment papers, he lost his license 2 years later for taking bribes to commit difficult teenagers. A knock at the study door made me jump. Ingrid stood there, looking nervous. Miss Taylor, there's something else you should see. She led me to the basement, to a wall of old filing cabinets. Your grandfather kept everything, every receipt, every document. He knew someday you'd need proof. The cabinet drawer squealed as she pulled it open. Inside, perfectly organized, was a folder labeled Laurel Fraud Evidence. He wanted to stop her, Ingrid said softly, but she threatened to destroy you if he did, said she'd make sure you'd never be believed again. My hands trembled as I opened the folder, bank statements, forged signatures, photos of Mom meeting with shady lawyers, and medical records. So many medical records. They didn't just drug me that one time, did they? Ingrid's eyes filled with tears. It started when you were 13. Anytime you asked too many questions about the family money, your mother would say you were having an episode and put something in your food. And Grandpa just watched it happen? Anger surged through me. No, miss. He was gathering evidence, building a case. That's why he left you everything. He knew you'd be strong enough to finish what he started. My phone buzzed again, a text from Cruz. Found something big. Come to the office now. 20 minutes later, I stared at Cruz's computer screen in shock. Is this real? Very. He pointed to the offshore account numbers. Your mother didn't just steal from the family trust. She's been embezzling from your grandfather's charitable foundation for years, millions diverted through shell companies. Can we prove it? Better? He grinned. Or we can get her arrested for it. International wire fraud is federal territory. I sat back, mind racing. She'll claim I'm making it up. Play the poor, unstable daughter card again. Not this time. Cruz pulled out a USB drive. Your grandfather left this in my care. It's security footage from his home office. Shows your mother accessing his computer, making transfers, and the best part? Shows her deliberately drugging your tea when you started asking questions. My hands clenched into fists. I want to destroy her. Taylor. Cruz's voice softened. Are you sure? This isn't just revenge anymore. This is prison time. You don't understand. She didn't just steal money. She stole my sanity, made me doubt everything about myself. Every memory, every feeling. My voice cracked. She made me think I was crazy. Okay. He nodded slowly. But we do this right. By the book. No mistakes she can use against you. I pulled out Grandpa's journal. We'll use everything, the journal, the footage, the financial records, show everyone exactly who Laurel really is. It'll break her. Good. I stood up, suddenly energized. She broke me first. Now it's her turn. As I left Cruz's office, my phone lit up with a text from Soleil. Mom's having a breakdown. This is all your fault. How could you do this to your own family? I typed back, family doesn't drug family. Family doesn't steal and lie and manipulate. But don't worry, sis. Mom's breakdown, that's just the beginning. The truth was coming out, piece by devastating piece, and this time, no amount of specialty could make it go away. Run it by me one more time, Officer Bennett said, leaning over the conference room table. I want every detail perfect. Cruz spread out the surveillance photos. The intervention is scheduled for tomorrow at 2 p.m. Taylor's family thinks they're staging an emergency mental health evaluation. What they don't know is we've got cameras in every room and officers stationed outside. I pointed to the blueprint of my family's house. Mom will lead the show, she always does. She'll have Elena there to play doctor, probably with some forged medical documents. Soleil will cry on cue, Dad will act concerned, but let Mom do the talking. And you're sure they'll incriminate themselves? Bennett asked. Trust me, I said. Give my mother an audience and she'll monologue like a Bond villain, especially if she thinks she's winning. My phone buzzed, a text from Soleil. Family meeting in an hour, don't be late, we're all so worried about you. Here we go, I muttered, showing them the message. Cruz grabbed my arm. Remember, let them talk. The more they say, the more evidence we get. I nodded, but my hands were shaking. Not from fear, from anticipation. The family meeting was exactly what I expected. Mom paced the living room like a caged tiger, while Dad and Soleil flanked me on the couch. Darling, Mom said, her voice dripping with fake concern, we've all noticed how erratic you've been lately. The accusations, the paranoid behavior, the cameras, Soleil added helpfully. She thinks we're spying on her. I forced my voice to quiver, but I heard you. The recordings. See? Mom gestured dramatically. These delusions. Tomorrow we're having a dear friend come over, a wonderful doctor who can help you understand what's happening. The same doctor who was just arrested? I asked innocently. Mom's smile flickered for just a second. That unfortunate misunderstanding has been cleared up. Elena is a highly respected professional. Who's been paying her rent? The words slipped out before I could stop them. Dad stood up suddenly. That's enough. You're sick, Taylor. You need help. Like the help you gave me when I was 15. I watched Mom's face pale. The special tea? The mystery pills? You're confused, Mom said sharply. Roberto, she's getting hysterical. Get her medication. No, I jumped up, playing my part. No more pills. No more tea. Soleil, call Elena, Mom ordered. Tell her we need her tonight instead. This can't wait until tomorrow. I ran to my room, slamming the door, but not before catching Mom's satisfied smile. Everything was going according to their plan. And mine. An hour later, Elena arrived, looking nervous but determined. They'd probably paid her extra for the emergency visit. Taylor? She knocked on my door. It's Dr. Wagner. Your family asked me to speak with you. I opened the door, letting her see my tear-streaked face. They're trying to drug me again. Now, Taylor, she said soothingly, these paranoid thoughts. I have proof! I grabbed my phone. I recorded everything. Give me that phone! Dad lunged forward, but I dodged. Roberto, Mom snapped. Let Elena handle this. Taylor, sweetheart, you're having an episode. Let us help you. Like you helped me before? I played the recording, Mom's voice discussing medication dosages with Soleil. Mom's face turned to stone. That recording is clearly doctored. Elena, you're witnessing exactly what we discussed. The paranoid delusions, the accusations. The truth, I suggested. Enough! Mom's mask finally cracked. You ungrateful little... Do you know how hard we worked to keep you under control? How much money we spent on doctors who would cooperate? Mom, Soleil warned, but it was too late. Keep me under control? I repeated. Why? Because I asked questions? Because I knew about the missing money? Because you were going to ruin everything, Mom screamed. Just like you're trying to do now. Elena, do something. Elena stepped forward, pulling out a prescription pad. Perhaps a strong sedative. Actually, I said clearly, I think we have everything we need. The front door opened. Officer Bennett walked in, followed by his team and Cruz. "What's this?" Mom whispered. "This," Cruz said, "is what actual evidence looks like, not forged documents or fake diagnoses, but real, recorded confessions of long-term abuse and medical fraud." "You can't," Mom started, but her voice failed. "We can," Bennett said, "and we will. Elena Wagner, you're under arrest. Again. Mrs. Jensen, you too. The FBI will be very interested in those cooperative doctors you mentioned." As the officers read them their rights, I caught Soleil's eye. She looked terrified. "Don't worry, sis," I said softly. "I'm sure there's a doctor somewhere who can help you deal with all this, one with an actual license." The game was over, and this time I'd won more than just my freedom. I'd won my truth. The police station's interrogation room was cold, but Mom's glare was colder. She sat across from me, her perfect makeup starting to crack after 6 hours in custody. "You can still fix this," she said, her voice hoarse. "Tell them you made it all up, that you were confused, emotional after your grandfather's death." I leaned forward, placing Grandpa Harold's journal on the table between us. "Like I was confused when I caught you stealing from his accounts, or emotional when you drugged me to keep me quiet. I was protecting you." She slammed her hand on the table. "You were out of control, asking dangerous questions. About the missing millions? The offshore accounts? Or about what really happened to Grandpa Harold's first will?" Her face went white. "What are you talking about?" I pulled out a document from my folder, a copy of an earlier will dated just 2 months before his death. The one where he left everything to charity. The one that mysteriously disappeared after your last private meeting with him. "Where did you get that?" "Ingrid kept copies of everything." I watched her perfectly manicured nails dig into her palms. "Including the security footage from that day. Want to explain why Grandpa signed a new will right after drinking the tea you brought him?" The door opened. Cruz walked in with Officer Bennett and a sharp-suited woman I didn't recognize. "Mrs. Jensen," the woman said, "I'm Special Agent Torres with the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. We need to discuss some irregular transactions from your father's charitable foundation." Mom's lawyer, a nervous man with sweat stains under his arms, jumped in. "My client has nothing to say without—" "Actually," I interrupted, "I think she has a lot to say about forged signatures, drug tea, and convenient new wills." "You ungrateful little—" Mom started to rise, but Bennett's hand on her shoulder kept her seated. "Mrs. Jensen," Torres said, "we've frozen all associated accounts. We know about the shell companies, the offshore transfers, the bribes to medical professionals. The only question is, how deep do you want this hole to get?" Mom's facade cracked completely. "You have no idea what it was like, living under his control, watching him favor her over everyone else. She didn't deserve any of it." "So, you decided to take it?" I asked quietly. "By any means necessary?" "He was going to give everything away, to strangers, our family's money, our legacy." "Your criminal enterprise?" Torres corrected. "We've traced systematic fraud going back 15 years. Your daughter wasn't asking dangerous questions. She was asking the right ones." The door opened again. Dad was led in, looking defeated. Soleil followed, mascara streaking her cheeks. "Daddy," she whimpered, "make this stop." But Dad just slumped in his chair. "It's over, Laurel. They found the original documents. All of them." "Roberto!" Mom's voice cracked like a whip. "Don't you dare!" "They know about the doctor in Switzerland," he continued. "The one who helped us with Taylor's treatment records. He's already talking to save himself." I felt my breath catch. "Switzerland?" Cruz touched my shoulder. "We found records of payments to a private clinic, dates matching your episodes as a teenager." The room started spinning. "You sent me to Switzerland? When?" "You were sick." Mom's voice rose hysterically. "We had to do something before you ruined everything." "You mean before I exposed everything?" I corrected, my voice steady despite the nausea rising in my throat. Torres laid out more documents. "Mrs. Jensen, we have evidence of international wire fraud, medical abuse, conspiracy, and that's just the start. Your cooperation now could make a significant difference in sentencing." "Sentencing?" Soleil squeaked. "Mom, what are they talking about?" "Federal prison," Bennett said flatly. "Unless she starts talking." Mom looked around the room wildly, like a trapped animal. Her eyes landed on me, and for a moment I saw something I'd never seen before: fear. "Taylor," she whispered, "you can't do this to your own mother." I stood up slowly, gathering my documents. "You're right, I can't do this to you." I paused at the door. "But your own actions, can, and did. "Wait!" she called out. "I'll tell you everything about the money, the will, all of it. Just don't leave me here." I turned back one last time. "Like you left me in Switzerland?" As I walked out, I could hear her starting to talk, spilling secrets like poison. Cruz followed me into the hallway. "You okay?" he asked. "No," I said honestly. "But I will be. What happens now?" "Now?" He smiled grimly. "Now we watch justice do its job, and you start living your life without their shadows hanging over you." Behind us, Mom's voice rose and fell, confessing crimes I hadn't even known about. Each word was another brick in the prison she'd built for herself. And for the first time in my life, I felt truly, completely free. The headlines hit like a tsunami. Prominent family's dark secret exposed. Mother drug daughter to hide $1 million fraud. Fake doctor scheme leads to federal investigation. I sat in Cruz's office, watching the morning news coverage spiral. Blair Murray, a local journalist with a reputation for ruthlessness, was having a field day. Sources say the family matriarch orchestrated a decades-long campaign of medical abuse and financial fraud. Blair reported, standing outside the courthouse. The victim, her own daughter, was systematically drugged and gaslighted to prevent her from exposing the truth. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since the story broke. Old classmates, distant relatives, even former teachers, all claiming they'd always known something was wrong. "Turn it off," Cruz suggested, closing his laptop. "You don't need to watch this." "Yes, I do." I picked up the morning paper. "Look at this. Mom's social club has already expelled her. Dad's business partners are distancing themselves. Soleil's wedding got canceled." "That bothers you?" "No. Yes. I don't know." I ran my hands through my hair. I wanted justice, not this circus. The door burst open. "Speak of the devil," Soleil stormed in, looking like hell. "Are you happy now?" she screamed, throwing a magazine at me. Our family drama was splashed across the cover. "You've destroyed everything." "Your mother did that all by herself," Cruz said calmly, reaching for his phone. "Don't bother calling security," she spat. "I'm not leaving until she hears what she's done. My fiancé left me. My friends won't return my calls. Everything we built was built on lies," I finished, "and stolen money. And my drug tea. You could have handled this privately. Instead, you had to make it this spectacle." I stood up slowly. "Like the spectacle you made of my mental illness? The show you put on every time I got too close to the truth? That was different. We were protecting you." "From what? The truth? That Mom was stealing millions? That you all knew about the drugs? That I spent time in a Swiss clinic I don't even remember?" Soleil's face crumpled. "You weren't supposed to find out about Switzerland." "But I did. Just like I found out about everything else." I picked up the magazine she'd thrown. "The truth has a way of coming out, sis. Maybe that's what you should tell Mom during visiting hours." "Mom's not eating," she whispered. "She just sits there, staring at the wall. Dad's lawyer says he might take a plea deal." "Smart man. How can you be so cold?" "They're our parents." "No," I corrected her. "They're criminals who happen to raise us. There's a difference." A knock at the door interrupted us. Officer Bennett entered, looking grim. "Taylor, we need you to come down to the station. There's been a development." "What kind of development?" "Your mother tried to hang herself in her cell this morning." The world tilted sideways. Soleil let out a choked sob. "Is she—" I couldn't finish the question. "She's alive. Guards got to her in time, but she's asking for you." I looked at Cruz, who nodded slowly. "I'll come with you." The drive to the detention center was silent. Soleil had insisted on coming, mascara running down her face. When we arrived, a doctor was waiting to brief us. "She's stable," he said. But the incident triggered a psychological evaluation. We found concerning things in her blood work. "What kind of things?" I asked. "The same medications she used on you. She's been self-medicating for years, possibly decades." Soleil grabbed my arm. "What does that mean?" "It means," I said slowly, "that Mom's been living in her own twisted reality for a very long time." They led us to the medical wing. Mom lay handcuffed to the bed, looking small and broken, nothing like the towering figure who'd terrorized my childhood. "Taylor," she whispered when she saw me. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." Save it, I said, but my voice shook. You're only sorry you got caught. No, I'm sorry I became my mother. She closed her eyes. She did the same things to me, the pills, the control, the secrets. I promised I'd never, but I did. I became her. Mrs. Jensen, a nurse interrupted. It's time for your medication. Mom flinched at the word. For a moment, I saw myself in that flinch, all the times I'd been medicated for my own good. The cycle stops here, I said firmly. With me? I turned to leave, but her voice stopped me. I loved you, she called out, in my own twisted way. I know, I replied, not looking back. That's what makes it worse. Outside, in the harsh sunlight, Soleil caught up to me. What do we do now? We tell the truth, I said, all of it. And then we learn how to live with it. The headlines would keep coming. The story would keep spreading. But for the first time, I wasn't afraid of what people would say, because the truth, however ugly, was finally free. The autumn wind scattered leaves across Grandpa Harold's grave as I placed fresh flowers beside his headstone. The morning sun cast long shadows through the cemetery's trees, and somewhere nearby, a bird called out in the crisp air. I did it, Grandpa, I said softly. Though maybe not quite how you planned. Mom had taken a plea deal, 15 years for fraud and conspiracy. Dad got 8. Soleil avoided jail time, but faced hefty fines and community service. The family name was in tatters, our reputation destroyed. My phone buzzed, Cruz calling. You need to see this, he said without preamble. Remember that offshore account we couldn't trace? It just activated. I sat up straighter. What do you mean, activated? A transfer was initiated this morning to a new charitable foundation. The paperwork lists you as the executor. I didn't set up any foundation. No, Cruz said. Your grandfather did, before he died. The account was set to activate only after certain conditions were met. I touched the cold granite of the headstone. What conditions? The complete exposure of the family's crimes. He knew, Taylor. He knew you'd figure it out eventually. A rustle of leaves made me turn. Ingrid stood there, holding a familiar leather briefcase, Grandpa's favorite. I've been waiting for this day, she said, ending my call with Cruz. Your grandfather left instructions, very specific ones. She opened the briefcase and pulled out an envelope. Inside was a letter, written in Grandpa's distinctive hand. My dearest Taylor, if you're reading this, you've done what I never could. Expose the truth. The foundation is yours now. Use it to help others like you, victims of family abuse and gaslighting. Break the cycles that trap people in gilded cages. But remember, revenge consumes if you let it. I've watched you fight for justice. Now fight for healing. All my love, Harold. There's more, Ingrid said, pulling out another document. The foundation has a name, the Truth Tellers Fund. My hands shook as I read the mission statement, grants for abuse survivors, legal aid for victims of financial fraud, mental health support for those recovering from family trauma. He planned all this? Ingrid smiled sadly. He knew the truth would destroy the family, but he hoped it might save others. A familiar click of heels on pavement made me turn. Soleil stood there, looking uncertain. I thought I'd find you here, she said. I've been doing a lot of thinking. About truth, about lies. She took a deep breath. I want to help. With the foundation. If you'll let me. I studied her face. No makeup, no perfect mask. Just my sister, finally real. Why? Because I was part of the problem. And maybe I can be part of the solution. She pulled out her phone. I've been getting messages from other people like us, children of wealthy families trapped in cycles of abuse and control. They need help. It won't be easy, I warned. No more pretty lies. No more covering up ugly truths. I know. She squared her shoulders. But I'm ready to tell the truth. All of it. My phone buzzed again, Cruz sending documents about the foundation, about healing, about hope. Okay, I said finally. But we do this right. No shortcuts. No compromises. No more tea, Soleil added with a weak smile. I touched Grandpa's headstone one last time. He'd given me more than money. He'd given me purpose. Miss Taylor, Ingrid said gently, There's one more thing. She pulled out a small key. To your grandfather's private study. He said you'd know when it was time. I did know. It was time to stop looking back at the damage and start looking forward to the healing. Coming? I asked Soleil. She nodded, falling into step beside me. We walked through the autumn morning, leaving the graves and shadows behind. The truth had torn our family apart. But maybe, just maybe, it could help put other families back together. My phone buzzed one final time. A message from Mom's prison psychiatrist. She's asking to make amends. Real ones this time. No games, no lies. Your choice. I showed the message to Soleil. She squeezed my hand. Whatever you decide, she said. I'm here, for real this time. I looked at the message again, then at the key in my hand. Grandpa Harold had known this moment would come, when the truth wasn't just about exposing lies, but about choosing what to build from the ashes. Tell her, I typed back, that the truth is a good place to start. The morning sun broke through the clouds, warm on my face. Ahead lay a new path, not of revenge, but of restoration, and this time I wasn't walking it alone.
I found the lipstick-stained wine glass tucked between the passenger seat and center console of Davis's car. Crimson red, definitely not my shade. I'm more of a nude pink kind of girl, which he knows because he's bought me enough makeup over our 2 years together to stock a small Sephora. My name is Saj, and 3 weeks ago I thought I was living a fairy tale. Now I'm standing in our driveway at 7 a.m. holding physical proof that my fiancé is either kissing someone else or has taken up cross-dressing. Given his mother Nora's constant hints about his one true love, Rebecca, I'm betting on the former. You're being paranoid, Davis said last night when I mentioned how distant he'd been lately. He kissed my forehead in that patronizing way men do when they think you're being hysterical. Work's just crazy right now. The Miller account is killing me. I placed the wine glass in a plastic bag and texted my best friend Emma. Found something. Come over. She replied instantly. Be there in 20, bringing coffee and my I told you so faith. When Emma arrived, she examined the glass like a CSI tech. Well, looks like Mother Dearest precious Rebecca is making her predicted comeback. We don't know it's Rebecca, I said, but my stomach churned because deep down I did know. Please, Emma scoffed. Nora's been dropping hints bigger than her ego. Remember what she said at dinner last week? I did. We'd been discussing wedding venues when Nora smiled that razor-sharp smile of hers and said, sometimes the perfect match isn't the first choice, but the one that was meant to return. Davis had nearly choked on his wine. My phone buzzed, speaking of the devil. Darling, I've been thinking about the engagement party, Nora's text read. Rebecca knows this amazing party planner. She's offered to help coordinate. Emma read over my shoulder and snorted. The audacity of this woman. You literally plan events for a living. It's fine, I said, typing back a polite thank you, but no thank you. I'm handling it. It's not fine, Emma insisted. None of this is fine. First the mysterious late nights, then the weird texts. Now this glass. Trust your gut, Sage. I sighed, remembering the first time I caught Davis cheating, barely 6 months into our relationship. He'd sworn it was a one-time mistake, cried real tears, promised it would never happen again. I'd believed him because I wanted to, because he seemed so genuine, because love makes you stupid sometimes. My phone buzzed again. Davis. Dinner tonight. Mum wants to discuss engagement party details. Tell him you're busy, Emma said. No, I replied, something cold and clear crystallizing in my chest. I think I'll go. In fact, I think I'll be the most supportive, understanding fiancé ever. Emma's eyes narrowed. What are you planning? Nothing yet, I said. But I was already thinking about the venue's AV system, about the security cameras in the hotel lobby where Davis had been spending his late nights at the office, about how karma sometimes needs a little push. But you know what they say about keeping your friends close. And your enemies closer, Emma finished, a slow smile spreading across her face. I'm in. Whatever you're thinking, I'm in. That evening, I sat across from Davis and Nora at some overpriced restaurant, watching them exchange glances when they thought I wasn't looking. Nora was in rare form, dropping hints like bombs. Remember that beautiful New Year's party when Rebecca wore that red dress? She sighed nostalgically. Some things just can't be replaced. Davis shifted uncomfortably. Mum, please. I smiled, took a sip of wine, and thought about the lipstick-stained glass in my possession. You're right, Nora. Some things can't be replaced. They can only be exposed. She looked at me sharply, but I kept my face innocent, interested, engaged, the perfect future daughter-in-law. Davis relaxed visibly, probably thinking he'd dodged a bullet. Poor Davis. He never was very good at reading between the lines. Later that night, as I lay in bed beside him, listening to his steady breathing, I made a decision. I wouldn't scream or cry or throw things when the truth came out. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. No, I would do something much worse. I would wait. And when the moment was right, when they felt most secure in their little web of lies, I would give them exactly what they deserved, a show they'd never forget. My phone lit up with a text from Emma. You okay? I typed back. I will be. Start documenting everything. We're going to need proof. Then I turned off my phone, closed my eyes, and dreamed of Karma wearing crimson red lipstick. He's been in there for 45 minutes, Emma whispered from the driver's seat of her Honda parked across from the Westbrook Hotel. We'd followed Davis after he'd texted me about another late client meeting. I adjusted my phone's camera zoom, focusing on the hotel's entrance. The client must be very demanding. Sage, Emma's voice was gentle. Are you sure you want to see this? Before I could answer, they appeared. Davis and Rebecca emerged from the revolving doors, his hand on the small of her back, just like he used to do with me. Rebecca was fixing her lipstick, crimson red. Click, click, click. Got it, I said, my voice steady despite the earthquake in my chest. Let's go. Emma started the car but hesitated. We could just post these right now, end it all tonight. I shook my head. That's not enough. I want them all to feel it. Davis, Rebecca, and especially Nora. Back at my apartment, I scrolled through the photos while Emma poured wine. They weren't just incriminating. They told a story. The way they looked at each other, touched each other. This wasn't new. This had been going on for months. My phone buzzed with a text from Nora. Darling, Rebecca and I are having lunch tomorrow to discuss the engagement party. Join us. The audacity, Emma muttered, reading over my shoulder. She's literally orchestrating this whole thing. I showed Emma my screen, open to Nora's text thread history. Look at these messages from last month. The texts were damning. Nora to Rebecca. He's not himself with her. You're the only one who truly understands him. Rebecca, I know, this engagement is just his way of running from what we had. Nora, patience, dear. She's just a placeholder fiancé. There's still time to fix this. Emma's face flushed with anger. That manipulative Wait, I interrupted, an idea forming. I'm going to that lunch tomorrow. What? Why? Because, I smiled, I need them to think they're winning, and I need to plant a seed. The next day, I walked into the restaurant looking perfectly put together in my cream silk blouse and pearls, Nora's idea of proper attire. They were already seated, heads close together, whispering like conspirators. Saiji! Nora's smile was pure theatre. We were just discussing the guest list. How lovely, I said, sliding into my seat. Actually, I had an idea about that. I was thinking of inviting Wilson. Rebecca's fork clattered against her plate. Davis had always been jealous of Wilson, my former flame who still worked with me. Wilson? Nora's smile tightened. Your colleague? Yes, I said innocently. He's been so supportive of Davis and me, and he's quite good with cameras. He could document the whole evening. Rebecca and Nora exchanged a look that spoke volumes. I'm not sure that's appropriate, Nora began. Oh, but Davis already agreed, I lied smoothly. He said it was a wonderful idea. The rest of lunch was deliciously tense. When I left, I called Emma immediately. They took the bait, I said. Nora will tell Davis about Wilson, Davis will get jealous, and when he confronts me tonight... You'll record everything, Emma finished. Brilliant. That evening, right on cue, Davis stormed into our apartment. Wilson? Really? I pressed record on my phone, hidden in my pocket. What about Wilson? Mum said you're inviting him to the engagement party, planning to have him take pictures. His voice dripped with sarcasm. Davis, I said softly, what's really bothering you? He broke, just like I knew he would. I can't keep doing this. Doing what? I've made a terrible mistake, he choked out. With Rebecca, it started again 3 months ago. Mum kept pushing us together, saying we were meant to be, and I was weak. I let the silence stretch, let him fill it with his confession. Please, he begged, please forgive me. I'll end it with her. I'll tell Mum to back off. Just don't leave. I stopped the recording and fought back a smile. Of course I forgive you, I lied, hugging him while my phone burned with evidence in my pocket. We all make mistakes. Later, I sent the audio file to Emma with a simple message. Phase 1 complete. She replied, Holy shit, what's Phase 2? I looked at the engagement party invitation on my desk, then at the venue's floor plan with its state-of-the-art projection system. Phase 2, I typed back, is going to be spectacular, because sometimes karma needs an audience, and I was going to give her one hell of a stage. A joint engagement party, I repeated, staring at Davis across our kitchen island, with Rebecca hosting. Mum thinks it would show maturity, Davis explained, not meeting my eyes. You know, prove there's no bad blood between past and present. I stirred my coffee slowly, watching the cream create perfect spirals. And what do you think? I think, he hesitated, I think it would make things easier, for everyone. Of course he did. Davis Holland had never met a confrontation he couldn't avoid. My phone buzzed. A text from Wilson. Free for coffee, need to discuss the Anderson event. Who's that? Davis asked, trying to sound casual. Work stuff, I said, typing back a quick yes. Speaking of which, I should get going. An hour later, I sat across from Wilson at our usual coffee spot, watching him gesture animatedly about event logistics. He looked good, he always did, but something was different now. The attraction that used to flutter in my stomach had been replaced by clarity. Sage? Wilson waved his hand in front of my face. You okay? You seem distracted. Davis is cheating on me, I said simply. Wilson's face darkened. That son of a... with his ex, and his mother is helping them. Jesus! He ran a hand through his hair. Leave him, today, right now. I shook my head. Not yet. Why not? Because, I leaned forward, lowering my voice, I need your help with something first. After explaining my plan, Wilson sat back, impressed. That's actually brilliant, and slightly terrifying, but mostly brilliant. Will you help? Of course. He reached across the table, squeezing my hand. Whatever you need. Later that evening, Emma paced our living room, processing everything. So Wilson's in. That's good. But are you sure about this joint party thing? It feels like walking into the lion's den. That's exactly what it is, I said, pulling up the venue's layout on my laptop. And the lions think they're about to feast. My phone chimed. A group text from Nora. Ladies' lunch tomorrow to discuss party details. Rebecca has wonderful ideas. Emma read it and gagged. How are you staying so calm? Because I'm not their victim anymore, I replied. I'm the director, and they're all playing their parts perfectly. The next day's lunch was a masterclass in passive aggression. Rebecca dominated the conversation, while Nora nodded approvingly, both of them talking around me like I was invisible. The string quartet that played at my debutante ball would be perfect, Rebecca gushed. They know all our favourite songs, don't they, Nora? Boo, of course, dear, and we must use those gorgeous champagne flutes from the country club. I sat quietly, taking notes, playing the perfect pushover. Until... Oh, and Sage, Rebecca smiled sweetly. I hope you don't mind, but I took the liberty of changing the seating arrangement. I thought it made more sense for me to be at the main table, given my history with the family. Emma would have flipped the table, but I just smiled back. Whatever you think is best. Later that night, Davis found me in our home office, supposedly working late. You've been so understanding about everything, he said, wrapping his arms around me from behind. About the party, about Rebecca helping. I turned to face him, keeping my voice soft. I just want you to be happy. His face crumpled with guilt. I don't deserve you. No, I thought, but said, everyone deserves a second chance. After he left, I opened my laptop and clicked play on the security footage Wilson had helped me acquire. There they were, Davis and Rebecca entering the hotel, timestamp clear as day. Another clip, them in the hotel bar, his hand on her thigh. Another, Nora meeting them for lunch, all conspiratorial smiles. My phone buzzed. Emma. Still sure about this? We could just send him the videos and be done. I want to leave, I texted back. I just need one perfect scene first. The party's in 2 weeks, she replied. What if they suspect something? I thought about Rebecca's smug smile at lunch, about Nora's controlling grip on every detail, about Davis's guilty kisses. They won't, I typed. They're too convinced of their own brilliance, too sure I'm just the placeholder fiancé who'll quietly step aside when the time comes. Emma's response was immediate. Their mistake. I closed my laptop and walked to the window, watching the city lights flicker like stars. 2 weeks. 2 weeks of playing the perfect understanding fiancé. 2 weeks of watching them dig their own graves. Then, at last, the curtain would rise on my final act, and what a show it would be. The screen needs to be at least 20 feet wide, I told the venue manager, pointing at the ballroom's main wall, and the sound system has to be perfect. For a slideshow? He looked sceptical. It's an engagement party, I smiled. Everything needs to be perfect. Wilson, standing beside me, suppressed a smirk. He knew exactly what kind of slideshow I had planned. Speaking of perfect, he muttered as we left the venue, incoming at 2 o'clock. Nora and Rebecca were striding toward us, designer handbags swinging in sync. Of course they'd show up during my venue walkthrough. Nothing could be left to the actual event planner. Sagey, darling, Nora's voice dripped honey. And, Wilson, is it? How unexpected? Just helping with the technical setup, Wilson said smoothly. Sagey mentioned you wanted everything to be absolutely flawless. Rebecca's eyes narrowed. That's so thoughtful, though I'm sure we could have handled it. Oh, I insist, I said. Wilson's the best at what he does. He never misses a detail. The implications hung in the air like smoke. Nora's smile tightened. Well, she said, since we're all here, we should discuss the schedule. Rebecca had some wonderful suggestions about the speeches. Of course she does, I murmured, checking my phone. A text from Emma. Package received. Everything we need. Sorry, I looked up. You were saying? Later that evening, during yet another planning dinner at Nora's house, I watched Rebecca position herself next to Davis at every opportunity. Their fingers brushed while passing the salt. Their eyes met over wine glasses. They thought they were being subtle. Remember to get shots of the head table during speeches, I texted Wilson under the table. Already planned, he replied. Camera 2 will be focused there exclusively. Seiji? Nora's voice cut through my thoughts. We were discussing the music selection. Rebecca thinks... Actually, I interrupted softly, I was hoping to contribute something special. A surprise for Davis. Davis looked up, guilt flashing across his face. You don't have to, but I want to, I insisted. After all, this party is about celebrating our relationship. Rebecca choked slightly on her wine. The next day, Emma helped me sort through the evidence we'd gathered. Hotel footage, text messages, photos, all dated, all damning. This one's particularly nice, Emma said, holding up a screenshot of Nora's text to Rebecca. Nothing says, loving future mother-in-law, quite like planning your son's affair. Add it to the sequence, I said, right after Davis's confession video. You know, Emma hesitated, there's still time to just walk away, start fresh somewhere else. I thought about my father walking away when I was young, about how that clean break had left jagged edges that never quite healed. No, I said firmly, they don't get to write this ending. The week before the party, things intensified. Rebecca dropped by our apartment unexpectedly, claiming she needed to discuss party details. I watched her drift through our space, touching things that weren't hers, smiling like she already owned it all. Oh, look at this! She picked up a photo of Davis and me. You both look so comfortable together. We are, I said, noting how she lingered over Davis's face. Very comfortable. That night, I overheard her on the phone with Nora in the garden. Everything's going according to plan. He's finally coming home. I recorded it, of course, added it to the growing presentation that would be their undoing. The day before the party, Davis tried to kiss me goodbye as he left for work. I turned my cheek. Everything okay? He asked, frowning. Perfect, I said. Just nervous about tomorrow. I want everything to be exactly right. He relaxed, bought the lie. It will be. Mum and Rebecca have thought of everything. Yes, I agreed, thinking of the USB drive in my purse, of Wilson's carefully positioned cameras, of Emma's meticulously organised evidence. They certainly think they have. After he left, I called my mother. Are you sure about this? She asked quietly. Revenge can be a double-edged sword. I'm not looking for revenge, I told her. I'm looking for justice. There's a difference. She was silent for a moment. Just remember, sweetheart, sometimes the cleanest breaks hurt the most. I looked at my engagement ring, thinking about how it would look floating in Davis's champagne glass. Don't worry, Mum, I said. This break will be spectacular. The morning of the engagement party, I stood alone in the empty ballroom, watching the AV team test the projection system. The screen flickered to life, momentarily displaying Rebecca's crimson-lipped smile from the hotel security footage before going dark again. All set, Wilson called from the control booth. Want to do one final run-through? Before I could answer, Emma burst through the doors. We have a problem. My stomach dropped. What kind of problem? Your father's here. The world tilted slightly. I hadn't seen my father since I was 12, when he decided his new family was more important than his old one. That's impossible, I said. I didn't invite him. Nora did, Emma spat. I overheard her telling Rebecca it would add a humble family touch to balance out their society connections. Of course she did. One final power play designed to throw me off balance. Where is he? My voice sounded distant to my own ears. Hotel lobby, talking to Davis. I found them by the fountain, my father looking exactly like the Facebook photos I'd secretly studied over the years, just greyer, softer around the edges. Davis was showing him something on his phone, both laughing like old friends. Say, Davis called out, waving me over. Look who's here! I approached slowly, feeling 17 years of absence crystallize into something hard and sharp in my chest. Hello, Sige, my father said. arms opening for a hug I didn't step into. "You look beautiful." "Thank you," I replied coldly. "I wasn't expecting you." "Nora invited me, said it wouldn't be right without your father here." He smiled uncertainly. "I hope that's okay." Before I could respond, Nora appeared, perfectly timed as always. "Isn't this wonderful? Family coming together?" I looked at her composed face, at Davis's nervous smile, at my father's hopeful eyes, and suddenly everything clicked into perfect clarity. They all thought they could control my story. Nora with her manipulations, Davis with his lies, my father with his convenient return. "Excuse me," I said. "I need to check on something." I found Emma in the venue's powder room, already pulling out her emergency vodka flask. "Want some?" "No," I said, surprising myself. "I want to be completely clear-headed for this." "What are you going to do about your dad?" "Add him to the show," I said, pulling out my phone. "Wilson, we need to make one small addition to the presentation." An hour before the party, my mother arrived, taking one look at my face and knowing everything. "He's here, isn't he?" I nodded. "That woman," she sighed, meaning Nora. "She really thought this would break you." "It almost did," I admitted. "For a minute." Mum squeezed my hand. "A clean break is better than a slow bleed, remember?" "I remember." I looked at her, this woman who'd rebuilt herself after my father left, who'd never let anyone else write her story. "Will you stay? For what's coming?" "Front row," she promised. The guests began arriving at 6. I watched from the balcony as Nora played hostess, as Rebecca circled Davis like a glamorous shark, as my father chatted with distant relatives who hadn't bothered to keep in touch after he left. "Everything's ready," Wilson said behind me. "Cameras are in position, audio's perfect. The moment you give the signal—" "Good," I said, touching the USB drive in my clutch. "Is Christian here?" "Front table, already recording everything on his phone like you asked." Christian, Davis's socially awkward friend with a massive social media following, had no idea he'd been cast as our backup documenter. He recorded everything, always trying to go viral. Tonight, he'd get his wish. Emma appeared with a glass of champagne. Last chance to back out. I watched Nora guide Rebecca to the family table, my table, while Davis pretended not to notice. Watch my father accept a drink from the woman who'd weaponized his absence. Watch the perfect scene they'd all arranged, thinking they were the directors of this play. "No," I said, straightening my spine. "I'm done backing out." The ballroom lights dimmed right on schedule. Nora took the microphone, ready to begin her carefully scripted evening. She had no idea she was about to become a supporting character in my story instead. I touched my engagement ring, thinking about how it would look catching the light as it fell into Davis's champagne. Thought about Rebecca's smug smile dissolving when the screen lit up. About Nora's carefully constructed world crumbling in front of her society friends. About my father watching the daughter he'd abandoned take control of her own narrative. "Places, everyone," I whispered to myself as Nora began to speak. "The show is about to begin. Love," Nora's voice rang through the ballroom, "is about coming home, about returning to where you truly belong." I stood at the back of the room, watching her command the crowd like a conductor. Davis sat at the main table, Rebecca beside him, their knees touching under the white tablecloth. "And speaking of coming home," Nora continued, her smile sharp as glass, "I'd like to toast someone who's brought so much joy to our family, someone who's always been more than just a friend." The crowd shifted uncomfortably as Nora turned toward Rebecca. Even Christian lowered his phone slightly, sensing the awkwardness. "Rebecca, darling," Nora raised her glass, "you've been patient, you've been understanding, and you've never stopped being part of this family." Davis coughed, tugging at his collar. My father, seated at a nearby table, frowned in confusion. "Some might say it's unusual to have an ex at an engagement party," Nora laughed airily. "But then, some relationships transcend conventional labels, don't they?" Emma, stationed by the AV booth, caught my eye. "Ready?" she mouthed. I nodded slightly. "And now," Nora gestured toward me with theatrical grace, "I believe our bride-to-be has prepared a special tribute of her own." "Yes," I said, moving toward the microphone. "I have." The room turned to face me. Davis smiled encouragingly, probably expecting some sappy declaration of love. Rebecca smirked into her champagne glass. "Before I begin," I said softly, "I'd like to thank everyone who made this evening possible, especially you, Nora, for teaching me that family isn't just about blood. It's about choices." Nora beamed, missing the edge in my voice. "And Rebecca," I continued, "for showing me that some things really do transcend conventional labels, like loyalty, truth, fidelity." Davis's smile faltered. "But most of all," I turned to my father, "I'd like to thank the man who taught me my first lesson about love and trust. Dad, when you left us 17 years ago, I learned that sometimes people aren't who they pretend to be." The room went silent. My father's face drained of colour. "Which brings me to my tribute," I smiled, signalling Wilson, "a little presentation about love, trust and coming home." The screen flickered to life. Davis's confession filled the room. "I've made a terrible mistake. With Rebecca. It started again 3 months ago." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Rebecca knocked over her champagne glass. Nora lunged for the microphone, but Emma had already locked down the audio controls. Hotel security footage played next. Davis and Rebecca entering, leaving, his hand always on the small of her back. Then Nora's text to Rebecca appeared. "She's just a placeholder fiancé." This is doctored," Nora sputtered, but her voice shook. The final clip, Rebecca in the garden just yesterday. "He's finally coming home." Christian's phone was streaming it all, his followers multiplying by the second. "Stop this immediately," Nora commanded, but no one moved to help her. I picked up my champagne glass. "You're right, Nora. Love is about coming home, but my home isn't with liars and cheats." Davis stood up, knocking his chair backward. "Sergey, please." "Oh, I almost forgot your engagement gift," I said, slipping off my ring. It made a satisfying plink as it fell into his champagne. Rebecca burst into tears, perfectly timed, perfectly fake. "This is all a misunderstanding." "It?" I turned to the crowd, "because I have 17 more minutes of evidence if anyone's unclear." My father stood up. "Sergey, honey, don't," I cut him off. "You don't get to play concerned father now. You lost that role when you walked away." "That's enough," Nora's voice cracked like a whip. "You're making a scene." "No, Nora," I said calmly. "I'm just showing everyone exactly who you are, who you all are." The room erupted in whispers. Phone cameras flashed. Christian's live stream count hit 10,000. "Davis!" Rebecca wailed. "Tell them it's not true!" But Davis just stood there, champagne dripping from his fingers, my ring glinting at the bottom of his glass. I turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Rebecca, crimson red really isn't your colour." Emma fell into step beside me as I walked out, her arm linking through mine. Behind us, chaos erupted, Nora's carefully orchestrated evening dissolving into scandal and shock. "Wait," Davis called after me. "Where are you going?" I didn't turn around. Let him watch me walk away, just like my father had all those years ago. Let them all watch. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't just exposing the truth, it's walking away and letting that truth do all the work for you. The chaos behind us swelled like a wave as Emma and I reached the lobby. Phones were chiming everywhere. Christian's livestream had gone viral in real time. "Wait!" Davis's voice echoed through the marble hallway. "You can't just leave like this!" I kept walking, but he caught up, grabbing my arm. "Let me explain." "Don't touch her!" Wilson appeared suddenly, his voice low and dangerous. He must have followed us out. Davis released me, running his hands through his hair frantically. "This isn't! You don't understand!" "I understand perfectly," I said, turning to face him. "I understand that you're weak, that you let your mother run your life, that you never really stopped seeing Rebecca." "That's not fair!" Nora's voice cut through the lobby as she rushed toward us, Rebecca trailing behind like a crimson shadow. "You vindictive little—" "Careful, Nora." Emma held up her phone. "Still streaming." Hotel guests were gathering now, drawn by the drama. Phones recorded everything. Christian pushed through the crowd, narrating for his followers. And now the confrontation is spilling into the lobby. "You planned this," Rebecca accused, mascara running down her cheeks. "You set us up!" I laughed, actually laughed. "Set you up? You did this to yourselves. I just provided the spotlight." "You've ruined everything," Nora hissed. "Years of social connections, Davis's reputation." "Your careful manipulations," I finished for her. "Good." My father appeared at the edge of the crowd. "Sergei, please, let's all calm down and talk about this like adults." "Like adults?" I turned to him. "Where was that attitude when you were sneaking out at midnight 17 years ago?" The crowd murmured. More phones appeared. "That's different," he protested weakly. "No," I said, "it's exactly the same, people showing their true colours, running away when things get hard, making choices that hurt others." Davis stepped forward again. "I love you, Sage. We can fix this." "No, Davis, you love being comfortable. You love avoiding conflict. You love letting your mother make your choices." I gestured to Rebecca. "So go ahead. Choose comfort. Choose her. Just don't pretend it's about love." Rebecca's face contorted. "You think you're so perfect? So righteous? At least I fight for what I want." "Fight?" I raised an eyebrow. "Is that what you call sneaking around hotels? Letting his mother orchestrate your affair?" "Enough!" Davis shouted, his composure finally cracking. "This isn't who we are. We're better than this public spectacle." "No," I said quietly. "This is exactly who you are. You're just not used to people seeing it." Nora stepped forward, her society mask slipping completely. "You ungrateful little witch. After everything we've done for you." "Everything you've done to me," I corrected. "And now everyone knows. How does it feel, Nora, to lose control of the narrative?" The crowd had grown larger. Hotel security hovered uncertainly at the edges. Christian's commentary continued. "The live stream count just hit 50,000. "Davis," Rebecca whimpered, clutching his arm. "Do something!" But Davis just stood there, looking lost. The perfect son, the charming fiancé, the successful businessman, all his carefully maintained images crumbling under the weight of truth. "I'll tell you what Davis is going to do," I said, my voice carrying across the now silent lobby. "He's going to do exactly what he always does. Nothing. He's going to let his mother clean up this mess, let Rebecca comfort him, and tell himself he had no choice." "That's not true," he whispered, but his eyes said otherwise. My father tried one last time. "Sweetheart, you're hurt, I understand, but public humiliation—" "Save it," I cut him off. "You lost the right to give me advice about hurt feelings when you started your new family." Emma touched my arm gently. "Car's ready." I nodded, then turned to face them all one last time. Davis, Rebecca, Nora, my father. The people who thought they could write my story for me. "Goodbye," I said simply. "I hope the view's nice from the wreckage of your perfect little world." As Emma and I walked out into the night, Wilson following close behind, I heard Nora's shrill voice. "This isn't over." But it was. The truth was out there now, multiplying across social media, impossible to contain. Their carefully constructed facade had shattered in front of hundreds of witnesses and thousands of viewers. And me? I felt lighter with each step, like I was walking out of a dark theatre into bright sunlight. "You okay?" Emma asked as we reached her car. I looked back at the hotel one last time, at the chaos still spilling through its doors, at the life I was leaving behind. "Yes," I said, and smiled. "I'm finally free." The morning sun warmed my face as I sat on the beach, watching waves crash against the shore. Emma dropped onto the sand beside me, handing over a coffee and her phone. "You might want to see this," she said. Rebecca's Instagram post filled the screen, a soft focus photo of her looking wistfully into the distance. The caption read, "Sometimes love means letting go, but true souls always find their way back. Healing, Hein, still believe in love." "The comments are brutal," Emma grinned. "Apparently, being exposed as a homewrecker isn't great for her influencer brand." My phone buzzed. "Wilson, Davis just got passed over for the Miller account. Clients saw the video. Nobody wants to work with him." "Karma doesn't need a timeline," I murmured, remembering my mother's words. Speaking of Mum, her latest letter lay unopened in my lap. I'd been receiving them daily since the party, not because we weren't talking, but because she said some things needed to be written down. I opened today's envelope. "Dearest Sai, Nora called again. She's still trying to spin the story, but nobody's buying it. Your father also reached out. Don't worry, I hung up. Some bridges stay burned for a reason. Remember what I told you about Karma. She doesn't always check the calendar, but she never forgets an appointment. Love, Mum." "Your mum's got away with words," Emma said, reading over my shoulder. "She does." I folded the letter carefully. "Did you see Christian's latest update?" Emma pulled up the video. Nora, at some charity function, desperately trying to maintain her usual control. But people were turning away, conversations stopping when she approached. The camera caught her sitting alone at a table meant for 10. "I heard she's been dropped from 3 charity boards," Emma said. "Apparently, helping your son cheat on his fiancée isn't very philanthropic." My phone buzzed again. An unknown number. Davis. "Don't answer it," Emma warned. I put it on speaker instead. "Sage," Davis's voice cracked. "Please, everything's falling apart. Mum's a mess. Rebecca's threatening to write a tell-all. The firm is freezing me out." "Sounds like consequences," I said. "I need you," he pleaded. "You were always the strong one, the one who knew what to do." "No, Davis. I was just the one willing to face reality. You're on your own now." I hung up, blocking his number with a finality that felt like freedom. "You know what's funny?" I said to Emma. "I thought revenge would feel hot, angry, but it just feels clean." "Speaking of clean," Emma wiggled her eyebrows, "Wilson's been asking about you." "Wilson's been asking about work," I corrected. "The Anderson event needs a new coordinator since I quit." "Please," Emma scoffed. "He's been asking about work every day since the party. That's not about spreadsheets." Before I could respond, another text came through, from my father. "I know I have no right to reach out, but I'm proud of you. You did what I never could, stood up for yourself. If you ever want to talk—" I deleted it without responding. Some chapters needed to stay closed. A notification popped up. Rebecca had tagged me in a post. Against my better judgment, I opened it. It was the engagement party video, but not the revenge part. Just a quiet moment before everything exploded when I was standing alone in the ballroom. The caption read, "You think you won, but look at your eyes, so cold, so calculated. Was it worth losing your humanity for revenge?" I started laughing. Emma looked concerned until I showed her. "She really doesn't get it, does she?" I said. "This was never about winning, it was about truth." "And karma," Emma added. "And karma," I agreed, standing up and brushing sand from my legs. "Ready for breakfast?" "Actually," Emma hesitated, "Wilson's meeting us. He said something about a new job offer, senior event coordinator position, different city." I thought about Davis's pleading voice, about Rebecca's attempted manipulation, about Nora's crumbling social empire, about how revenge hadn't felt like fire, but like rain washing everything clean. "You know what?" I said. "Breakfast sounds perfect. Because sometimes the best ending isn't about getting even. It's about getting free. Free to choose your own path, write your own story, start your own chapter. And if that chapter happened to include breakfast with a certain handsome event coordinator, well, karma works in mysterious ways." I took one last look at the ocean, at the endless horizon stretching before me, and smiled. The future was wide open, and this time I was the only one holding the pen.
The worst conversations of your life always seem to start in kitchens. Maybe it's because that's where the knives are kept. My name is Bella, and I was about to lose everything I'd spent 3 years saving for, all because my mother couldn't handle the word no. "Sweetheart, it's just money," my mother Sylvia said, stirring her afternoon tea with the silver spoon she'd guilted me into buying her last Christmas. "Your sister needs this. After everything she's been through." I gripped the edge of our granite countertop, willing the tremor in my left hand to stop. The nerve condition was getting worse, the very reason I'd been squirreling away every spare dollar for the surgery that could fix it. "Mom, I can't. You know why I can't." Juliet, my younger sister, sat perched on a bar stool, scrolling through wedding venues on her iPad. "It's not like your surgery is emergency urgent," she said without looking up. "This is my special day we're talking about." "Your third special day," I muttered. "What was that?" Mom's voice sharpened. "Nothing." I took a deep breath. "Look, I've saved $38,000. The surgery costs $45,000. I'm so close. And Jules needs $40,000 for the venue deposit," Mom cut in. "You can restart your savings. Your sister deserves happiness after everything that monster put her through." Monster. Right. Her second husband, who I strongly suspected wasn't the villain in that story. "I can't work properly anymore," I said, holding up my trembling hand. "The nerve damage is spreading. If I wait too long—" "Oh, please," Juliet interrupted, finally looking up. "You've always been dramatic about money. Remember when you wouldn't loan me $5,000 for my business venture? The pyramid scheme makeup company that went bankrupt in 3 months? Girls," Mom warned, but her stern look was only directed at me. "Bella, your sister is trying to start fresh. This wedding will help her heal. Don't you want that for her?" The manipulation was so obvious it was almost artistic. I'd spent my whole life being the responsible one, the steady one, the one who always said yes when they needed money or help or emotional support. But this time was different. "No," I said quietly. The kitchen went silent. Even Juliet stopped scrolling. "What did you just say?" Mom's teacup clinked against its saucer. "I said no. I'm not giving up my surgery fund for Juliet's third wedding." Mom's face did that thing where it somehow became both softer and more threatening. "Darling, I don't think you understand. This isn't a request. You can't force me to give you my money." "No?" She pulled out her phone. "Remember when I helped you get that job at the nonprofit? Janet, your boss. We still have lunch sometimes. Wouldn't it be awful if she heard about your episodes?" My blood ran cold. Episodes? The mood swings, the paranoia, the instability. A finance department is no place for someone in your condition. She sighed dramatically. "I've been so worried about you lately. As your mother, maybe I have a responsibility to warn them." Juliet smirked behind her iPad. "You wouldn't," I whispered, but I knew she would. She'd done similar things before, smaller scales, different stakes. This was just the nuclear option. "Transfer the money by Friday," Mom said, standing up. "I'll tell the venue we're ready to move forward. Jules, show me that flower arrangement again." They moved to the living room, dismissing me like I was already irrelevant. I stood there, hand trembling worse than ever, watching my chance at a normal life slip away. But something else was trembling too, My other hand, which held my phone, still recording. I'd started doing that lately whenever they cornered me. 3 months of conversations, threats, confessions. Originally, I'd planned it as insurance. Now it felt more like ammunition. My phone buzzed with a text from Eric, my colleague at work. "You okay? You left that spreadsheet running on your desktop." I looked at the message, then at my sister and mother cooing over wedding photos. They had no idea I'd been tracking everything: the gambling apps, the credit card fraud, the lies about her ex-husbands. The spreadsheet Eric mentioned wasn't for work, it was evidence. I texted back, "No, but I will be." They wanted to play hardball? Fine. I'd been the good daughter, the reliable sister, the endless ATM for their dreams. But they'd forgotten something important. I worked in finance. I knew how to follow money, and money always tells the truth. Friday was coming, but not the Friday they expected. The email from HR arrived at 10:47 a.m., right when I was deep in a quarterly report. Subject line, informal inquiry, workplace conduct. My mother worked fast. I had to give her that. "Bella?" Eric's head popped over my cubicle wall. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I turned my monitor slightly so he could read the email. His eyes narrowed as he scanned the carefully worded corporate speak about concerns raised regarding emotional stability and commitment to maintaining a safe workplace environment. "This is bullshit," he muttered. "Who would—" "My mother knows Janet from their country club." I closed the email, hands shaking worse than usual. "She warned me she'd do this." "The same mother who was pressuring you about money yesterday?" I nodded, trying to focus on my breathing. The tremors were always worse under stress. "Pack up your stuff," Eric said suddenly. "We're taking an early lunch." 20 minutes later, we sat in his car in the far corner of the parking lot, a safe distance from office windows and curious eyes. I'd brought my laptop in a thick folder I kept in my bottom drawer. "Start from the beginning," Eric said, handing me a coffee from the drive-thru. "My sister's getting married. Again. She wants $40,000 for the venue deposit. My mother's demanding I empty my surgery fund to pay for it. And when you said no, she's trying to get me fired." I laughed, but it came out hollow. Classic Mom. She did the same thing when I refused to co-sign Juliet's car loan last year. Called my landlord and said I was running an illegal business from my apartment. Eric's grip tightened on his coffee cup. "That's straight-up harassment." "That's family." I opened my laptop. But this time, I was ready for it. I pulled up what I called my sister spreadsheet, 6 months of meticulously documented financial records, screenshots, and recordings. "See these transactions?" I pointed to a series of charges. "All gambling apps, thousands per month. And these?" I scrolled down. "Credit card applications under our father's name. He doesn't know about them." Eric whistled low. "How did you get all this?" "Juliet's terrible with passwords. She uses the same one everywhere. Her first husband's birthday. Ironic, since she cheated on him." I pulled out my phone and played a recording from 3 months ago. Juliet's voice, slurred with wine, filled the car. God, Mark was such a bore. But his beach house? Worth every fake smile. Until I met Ryan, obviously. Those abs? Couldn't resist. "Mark was husband number 2?" Eric asked. "Yeah, the one she told everyone was abusive. Turns out she was the one throwing things." I stopped the recording. "There's more, so much more." "Why haven't you exposed her?" "Because my mother would destroy me. You saw how quickly she moved with HR. Imagine what she'd do if I really fought back." Eric was quiet for a moment, then, "What if you had backup?" I looked at him. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I've worked in finance for 8 years. I know how to document fraud. And Mia in legal, she owes me a favor. We could build this into something bulletproof." My hands were trembling again, but not from the nerve condition. "You'd help me?" "Bella, I've watched you limp through work for months because you can't afford surgery. Meanwhile, your sister's planning her 3rd wedding? That's not right." He touched my shaking hand briefly. Let's fight back. Back at the office, I had 3 voicemails from my mother. I deleted them without listening. Instead, I forwarded Eric a folder of screenshots, Juliet's hidden Venmo transactions, her secret credit card statements, the threatening text from her abusive ex that showed a very different story. At 5 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Juliet. Mom says you're being difficult about the money. Don't be selfish. I deserve this. I stared at the message, thinking about all the times I'd given in, all the times I'd believed that being a good sister meant setting myself on fire to keep her warm. You okay? Eric asked, stopping by my desk with his coat. I showed him the text. Then I pulled up one final recording on my phone, Juliet at her bachelorette party for wedding number 2, bragging about how she'd used the wedding gift money to buy a Chanel purse instead of paying the caterer. No, I said, but I'm done being the only one who suffers for it. I looked up at him. Still want to help me build a case? He grinned. I thought you'd never ask. Want to grab dinner and strategize? For the first time in days, my hands were steady. Yes, it's time to show my family what happens when you push the quiet one too far. I grabbed my coat, leaving Juliet's text unanswered. Let them think they'd won. The best revenge needs patience. And I'd been patient for years. Holy shit, Mia from legal whispered, spreading the documents across her dining room table. Your sister's been busy. It was Saturday morning, and Eric had convinced Mia to meet us off the record at her house. Spread before us was what Eric called the golden child's greatest hits. Every scrap of evidence I'd collected over the past 6 months. Look at this pattern, Eric pointed to a highlighted section. Every time she gets engaged, there's a spike in gambling activity, almost like she's trying to win enough to cover the wedding costs. And failing spectacularly, I added, pulling up another spreadsheet. She's over $90,000 in debt. Chandler, her new fiancé, has no idea. The doorbell rang, making me jump. Mia checked her security camera and smiled. It's just Georgia. My Aunt Georgia walked in carrying a casserole dish. She stopped short when she saw all the papers. Oh, I didn't realize you had company. Stay, I said quickly. You should see this. Georgia set down her dish and peered at the nearest document. Her face went pale. Is that Travis's signature? No, I said. That's Juliet forging Dad's signature on a loan application. Georgia sank into a chair. I knew it. I knew something was wrong when she showed up with that new car last year. She looked at me. Your mother's been telling people at church that you're having some kind of breakdown. Says you're jealous of Juliet's happiness. Of course she is. I pulled out my phone and played the recording of Juliet bragging about her Chanel purse scam. Georgia's hand flew to her mouth. There's more, Eric said gently. He showed her the gambling app records. She needs help, Georgia whispered. Real help, not another wedding. Try telling that to Mom, I said. She's too busy threatening my job to notice her precious baby is drowning in debt and fraud. Mia, who'd been taking notes, looked up. Speaking of your job, I've drafted a cease and desist letter regarding your mother's harassment. We can have it delivered Monday. Won't that just make things worse? Georgia asked. Things are already worse, I said. Mom's trying to force me to give up my surgery fund. She's calling me unstable at work. What's left to lose? Your family, Georgia said softly. The room went quiet. Even Eric stopped shuffling papers. What family? I finally asked. The mother who's blackmailing me? The sister who steals and lies? The father who sees everything and says nothing? My hands were shaking again, but I didn't try to hide it. They stopped being family the moment they decided my health was worth less than Juliet's 3rd wedding. Georgia reached across the table and took my trembling hand. I remember when you were diagnosed. You were so scared, but you never complained. You just started saving, working extra hours. Meanwhile, Juliet was throwing tantrums over table settings. The perfect daughter versus the problem child, Mia mused, except they got the roles backward. There's something else, Eric said, pulling out his laptop. Show them the video, Bella. I hesitated, then nodded. He played the clip, security footage from a local casino showing Juliet slapping her second husband Mark, not the other way around as she'd claimed. Jesus, Georgia breathed. Does Chandler know about any of this? No one does, yet. I looked at Mia. What are my options? Mia tapped her pen against her legal pad. Legally, we have enough evidence of financial fraud to go to the police. But if you want to handle this differently, everything here is documented fact. You could expose it all without legal repercussions. You mean like at the wedding? Eric asked. I was thinking more like the engagement party next weekend, I said. Before they waste more people's money. Georgia squeezed my hand. Whatever you decide, I'm with you. This has gone on long enough. My phone buzzed, a text from my mother. Janet wants to meet Monday about your situation. Last chance to do the right thing. I showed the message to the others. Mia immediately started typing on her laptop. Eric's jaw clenched, but it was Georgia who spoke. You know what the worst part is? She said. Sylvia actually believes she's protecting Juliet. She can't see she's enabling her destruction. Well, I said, looking at the mountain of evidence before us, she's about to see everything. Eric started gathering the documents into organized piles. So, engagement party showdown it is? I nodded, feeling strangely calm. Time to show everyone who the unstable one really is. And Bella, Georgia said as we packed up, whatever happens, you're not alone anymore. Looking around at my unlikely support team, my aunt, my colleague, and a lawyer who'd given up her Saturday to help, I finally believed that might be true. The golden child's crown was about to get very, very heavy. My father's house always smelled like coffee and regret. I found him in his usual spot, the garage, tinkering with his old Mustang, hiding from the world. Hey, Dad! He slid out from under the car, wiping his hands on a rag. Bella, your mother said you weren't speaking to anyone? Yeah, well, Mom says a lot of things. I pulled up a workbench stool. We need to talk about Juliet. His shoulders tensed. Your sister's happy finally. Let's not stir things up. Did you know she forged your signature for a loan? The rag stopped moving. What? I showed him the documentation. His face aged 10 years as he read. There's more, I said quietly. Remember when she said Mark was abusive? Dad sat heavily on his toolbox. He wasn't? I played the casino video. Dad watched his precious youngest daughter scream obscenities and throw drinks, watched her slap Mark repeatedly while he tried to calm her down. Stop, he whispered. Please. I stopped the video. Why didn't you ever stand up to them, Dad? All these years you've watched Mom and Juliet tear me down. You've watched them take, and you never said a word. He studied his grease-stained hands. Your mother, she's complicated. When she decides something, she destroys anyone who disagrees. I held up my trembling hand, like she's trying to destroy my career because I won't give up my surgery fund. Surgery fund? He looked up sharply. What surgery? Of course they hadn't told him. The nerve condition's getting worse, Dad. I need corrective surgery. I've been saving for 3 years. And they want that money for the wedding? His voice cracked. Why didn't you tell me? Would it have mattered? The silence that followed was answer enough. I stood up. The engagement party's next weekend. I'm done being their victim, Dad. Things are going to change. Bella, wait. He caught my arm. What are you planning? The truth. All of it. I pulled away. You might want to be somewhere else when it happens. I left him standing in his garage, surrounded by the pieces of a car he'd never finish fixing, just like he'd never fix our family. My next stop was across town, at the trendy coffee shop where Juliet's best friend Zoe worked as a manager. I'd timed it perfectly. Her shift was ending. Bella? Zoe's surprise seemed genuine. I didn't expect... with everything... Just wanted to talk about the bridal shower, I said smoothly. Buy you a drink? 2 glasses of wine later, at the bar next door, Zoe was getting chatty. I love Jules, you know I do, but... She leaned in close. Does Chandler know about the restraining orders? I kept my face neutral. Which ones? From the exes, both of them. Zoe took another sip. I mean the one from Mark, okay, he was awful. But poor Tommy, she practically stalked him after he caught her with his credit cards. My phone was recording in my pocket. Tommy from the first marriage? God, that was a mess. Zoe shook her head. She maxed out all his cards, then told everyone he was cheating, but I saw the statements. It was all her. Shopping sprees, casino visits, cash advances. Does your conscience ever bother you? I asked quietly. Watching her do this again? Zoe's wine glass stopped halfway to her mouth. What do you mean? Chandler seems nice. He deserves to know what he's marrying. Zoe set down her glass. I've tried hinting, but Jules always says he's different. This time it's real love. Like she said about Tommy? And Mark? Zoe's eyes filled with tears. I should have said something sooner, shouldn't I? It's not too late. I slid her my card with Eric's number written on the back. If you want to make things right, call this number before the engagement party. My phone buzzed. An anonymous text. Back off or everything you love burns. I showed it to Zoe. Still think I'm the unstable one? She stared at the message, then grabbed her phone and took a picture. Call that number tomorrow? I nodded and stood to leave. At the door, she called after me. Bella, I'm sorry for not seeing it sooner. Me too, I said, but we're seeing it now. Outside, another text waited, this one from Eric. Everything's ready. Are you sure about this? I thought about my father in his garage, about Zoe's guilty tears, about my mother's threats and Juliet's lies, about my hands that wouldn't stop shaking. Yes, I texted back. It's time everyone saw the truth. The engagement party was 5 days away. My sister's castle of lies was about to crumble, and I'd make sure everyone watched it fall. The pre-wedding dinner was exactly as pretentious as I expected. Mom had rented out the private room at La Maison, where the silverware cost more than my monthly rent. Darling, Mom air-kissed my cheeks, as if she hadn't tried to destroy my career that week. I'm so glad you decided to be reasonable. The wire in my necklace picked up every word. Eric, monitoring the feed remotely, texted, Got it. Keep her talking. I smiled sweetly. Wouldn't miss it for the world. Juliet held court at the center table, Chandler beside her looking like a man who'd won the lottery without reading the fine print. His mother, Patricia, sat nearby, beaming at her future daughter-in-law, if she only knew. Bella, Juliet waved me over. Come sit by me. We've barely talked all week. Because I'd been busy documenting your fraud, dear sister. I sat down, adjusting my necklace. Beautiful party. Isn't it? Juliet grabbed Chandler's arm. Mom says now that you're being cooperative about the venue deposit, we can have the fairy tale wedding I deserve. Patricia perked up. Oh, are you helping with the wedding? Before I could answer, Mom swooped in. Bella's been going through some difficulties lately, but she's finally agreed to support her sister properly. Actually, I said clearly for the recording, I haven't agreed to anything. The temperature at the table dropped 10 degrees. Bella, Mom's voice carried a warning, don't make a scene. A scene? I took a sip of water. Like calling my boss with lies about my mental health or threatening me with anonymous texts? Chandler frowned. What's she talking about, Jules? Oh, ignore her, Juliet laughed nervously. She's been so unstable lately. Jealousy, you know. Jealous of what? I asked. Your gambling debts? Your restraining orders? Or the way you used your last wedding gifts to buy designer bags instead of paying vendors? Dead silence fell over the table. Patricia's fork clattered against her plate. That's enough. Mom stood up. Bella is clearly having another episode. She's been imagining things, making wild accusations. Really? I pulled out my phone. Should we ask Mark about what I'm imagining? Or Tommy? I hear they're both very interested in speaking at the wedding. Juliet's face went white. Chandler looked between us, confusion turning to suspicion. Jules? What's she talking about? Nothing. Juliet grabbed his hand. Baby, she's lying. She's sick. She needs help. The only help I need is surgery, I said, letting my trembling hand rest on the table. The surgery you're trying to steal money from, Patricia gasped. Steal? Mother, Juliet hissed. Do something. Mom placed her hand on my shoulder, squeezing hard. Sweetheart, you're making a fool of yourself. Let's get you home. Take your hand off me, I said quietly, or I'll play the recording of you threatening my career right now. She jerked back like I'd burned her. Bella? My father's voice came from behind me. I hadn't even noticed him arrive. Maybe this isn't the place. It's exactly the place. I stood up. I'm done being your family's ATM and emotional punching bag. The engagement party's still on for Saturday. I suggest everyone attend. There's going to be quite a show. If you do this, Mom said, her voice shaking, you're no longer part of this family. I laughed. Wow, Mom, that almost sounds like a reward. Chandler stood abruptly. Jules, we need to talk. Now. But baby, now. They left, Patricia following with concern etched on her face. Other guests pretended to be fascinated by their salads. You've ruined everything, Juliet spat as she passed me. No, I said. I'm just getting started. Eric was waiting in his car outside. I slid into the passenger seat, hands shaking so bad I could barely buckle the seatbelt. Got it all, he said, holding up the receiver connected to my wire. You okay? No. I let out a shaky breath. But I will be. Did Zoe call? This morning. She's willing to make a statement at the party. George is bringing the financial records, and Mia's got the legal documentation ready. My phone lit up with texts, threats from Mom, pleading from Juliet, a single message from Dad. I should have protected you better. Too little, too late. They'll try to stop the party from happening, I said. Eric grinned. Already handled. Mia booked the venue in her name. They can't cancel it without legal repercussions. I leaned back, closing my eyes. Saturday's going to be a bloodbath. Saturday, Eric said, starting the car, is going to be justice. He was right. The dress rehearsal was over. Time for the main event. And this time, I had front row seats to watch my sister's perfect world implode. The engagement party venue sparkled with fairy lights and champagne glasses. My mother had outdone herself, probably hoping the expensive atmosphere would keep me from making a scene. Eric stood by the AV equipment, pretending to be the hired tech. Mia sat near the front, legal documents tucked in her designer clutch. Georgia worked the room, making sure key players were in position. Last chance to back out, Eric murmured as I passed. I touched my trembling hand. Not a chance. Juliet looked radiant in designer white, clinging to Chandler's arm. He'd shown up despite our dinner drama, but the wariness in his eyes suggested he'd done some digging. Time for the presentation, Mom announced, clinking her glass. Bella has prepared a special tribute to the happy couple. The smirk in her voice was clear. She thought she'd won, that I'd fallen in line. After all, I'd asked to do this presentation. I must have seen reason. The lights dimmed. I took the microphone. Love is beautiful, I began, as the first slides appeared. And no one knows that better than my sister. Here's to third time's the charm. The crowd chuckled. Juliet's smile froze. Let's take a walk down memory lane. The slideshow began. Beautiful wedding photos from Juliet's first marriage. Tommy and Jules 2018. Budget $50,000, paid for by our parents. Next slide, bank statements showing maxed credit cards, all in Tommy's name. 6 months later, court documents appeared. Restraining order filed by Tommy after Juliet stalked him post-divorce. Gasps from the audience. Chandler sat up straight. But love conquers all. Wedding number 2, 2021. Mark and Jules. Budget $75,000. funded by family donations and wedding gifts. Security camera footage played, Juliet throwing glasses at Mark in the casino. She claimed he was abusive. I paused. The casino footage suggests otherwise. Turn it off, Juliet screamed, standing up. Why? This is your story, sister dear. Don't you want Chandler to know what he's investing in? More slides, gambling app transactions, forged loan documents, credit card statements. Current debt, $90,000. But hey, at least you got that Chanel purse. Want to tell everyone what you really did with their wedding gift money? The recording played through the speakers. Juliet's drunken confession about the purse, about using Mark for his beach house, about lying to everyone. Stop this immediately! Mom rushed toward Eric at the controls. He stood his ground, Mia beside him with a restraining order ready. And now, I continued, the happy couple wants $40,000 for a venue deposit. Mom's solution? Make me give up my surgery fund. Because in this family, Juliet's third wedding matters more than fixing my nerve damage. I held up my shaking hand. This is getting worse every day, but apparently that's less important than another fairy tale wedding for the sister who treats marriage like a get-rich-quick scheme. You bitter, jealous bitch! Juliet lunged forward, but Chandler caught her arm. Is it true? He asked quietly. The debt? The restraining orders? She's lying! Actually, Zoe stood up from her seat. She's not. I have proof of everything she's saying. As do I, Georgia added, pulling out her own folder. And I have the legal documentation right here, Mia chimed in. Chandler released Juliet's arm like it burned him. It's over. Baby, no, over. He turned to his mother. We're leaving. They walked out, Patricia shooting a disgusted look at Juliet as they passed. You've ruined everything, Mom screamed, then suddenly swayed. I feel... She crumpled. Dad rushed to catch her, ever the dutiful husband, even now. Always with the fainting spell when things don't go your way, Georgia muttered, but she went to help anyway. Juliet stood alone in the center of the room, her perfect world shattered around her. Guests whispered and pointed. Her mascara ran in black streaks. I hate you, she whispered as I passed her. Funny, I replied. I stopped caring what you think around the time Mom threatened my career to fund your latest scam. The room had erupted into chaos, people demanding refunds from previous wedding gifts, others calling to cancel checks for this one. Mia was handing out copies of the documentation to anyone who asked. Eric appeared at my side. Ready to go? I looked at my family one last time. Mom recovering on a chair, Dad hovering helplessly, Juliet crying mascara rivers into her champagne. Yes, I said, I'm done here. Georgia caught up with us at the door. That was quite a show. Was it worth it? Eric asked. I flexed my trembling hand, thinking of the surgery I could now have without guilt or manipulation, thinking of the years of lies and abuse finally exposed. Truth usually is, I said, and walked out into the night, leaving the wreckage of my sister's engagement party behind. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just exposing lies, it's finally being free of them. The aftermath hit social media before I even got home. Juliet's Instagram story was a masterclass in playing victim. My own sister's jealousy has destroyed my happiness, followed by crying selfies and vague quotes about betrayal. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing with messages. You've killed your mother, Mom. How could you do this to your sister, Dad? The truth needed to come out, Georgia. Girl, you're my hero, Mia. I turned it off and sat in my darkened apartment, waiting for the shaking in my hands to subside. It wasn't just the nerve condition anymore. Adrenaline had my whole body trembling. A knock at the door made me jump. It's Eric, and I brought reinforcements. I opened the door to find Eric, Georgia, and Mia holding pizza boxes and wine bottles. We figured you shouldn't be alone tonight, Georgia said, pushing past me into the kitchen. Your mother's already calling everyone at church. Let me guess, I'm possessed by demons? Close. She's saying you had a psychotic break. Mia pulled out her phone. But the video's already circulating. People are putting it together. Chandler's mother called me, Georgia added, pouring wine. She's grateful. Apparently, Juliet had already started pushing for access to their family trust fund. Another knock. This time it was Zoe, looking nervous. I hope it's okay that I came. I needed to tell you something. I let her in. She clutched her purse like a shield. Juliet just called me. She wanted me to sign a statement saying the evidence was fake, that you manipulated me into lying. Zoe's voice shook. I told her no. I'm done covering for her. How'd she take that? She threatened to tell everyone about my drinking problem from college. I told her to go ahead. Zoe managed a small smile. Your courage inspired me. My phone started ringing again. The landline this time. I put it on speaker. Bella? It was my father. Your mother's in the hospital. Of course she is, I muttered. She's demanding you come apologize. She says she'll forgive you if you admit you lied. Dad, stop. I cut him off. My bank account shows $0, just like Mom's compassion for me. I'm done playing her games. But she's your mother? No, she's Juliet's mother. I was just the ATM who happened to share DNA. Silence on the line. Then, so quiet, I almost missed it. I'm sorry I never stood up for you. Me too, Dad. Me too. I hung up. Eric touched my shoulder. You okay? No. I showed him my trembling hands. But I will be, once I get the surgery. About that, Mia pulled out her laptop. Remember how I said the video was circulating? Check your GoFundMe. I stared at the screen. The campaign Eric had set up last night, Help Bella Get Her Surgery, had already raised over $30,000. People really hate wedding scammers, Eric grinned, and they really love karma. Most of these donations are from guests at Juliet's previous weddings, Georgia pointed out. Looks like you're not the only one she burned. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Chandler, thank you for saving me from making a terrible mistake. I've donated to your surgery fund. Get well soon. Tears spilled down my cheeks, the first I'd allowed myself since this all began. Don't you dare feel guilty, Mia said firmly. You didn't destroy your family. You just exposed what was already broken. Besides, Zoe added, real family doesn't demand you sacrifice your health for their lies. Another text came through from my insurance company. I read it twice, not believing my eyes. What is it? Eric asked. They've approved my surgery. 3 months earlier than expected. There was a cancellation. When? Georgia asked. Next week. I looked up at my unlikely support system, the colleague who became my defender, the aunt who chose truth over loyalty, the lawyer who fought for justice, and the friend who finally stood up to my sister. Will you be there? Try keeping us away, Eric said, raising his wine glass. To karma. To truth, Mia added. To freedom, Georgia smiled. To real family, Zoe finished. My hands were still shaking, but somehow it didn't seem as scary anymore. Not with these people around me. The doorbell rang again. This time it was a delivery, a small package from the hospital. Inside was my surgery preparation packet and a note from my doctor. Your timing is perfect. Let's fix those hands. I looked at my found family, all raising their glasses in my tiny apartment, and felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Peace. Sometimes you have to break everything to fix what matters most, starting with yourself. The hospital room was quiet except for the steady beep of monitors and Eric's typing on his laptop. My hands lay still on the white sheets. No tremors, no shaking. Just peace. Your post is going viral, Eric said. Over 50,000 upvotes on Reddit already. Read me the comments? Finally, a bridezilla gets what she deserves. OP is my hero. Oh, here's a good one. I wish I'd had your courage when my sister did the same thing. A knock at the door interrupted us. Georgia peeked in, holding a basket of muffins. Behind her stood my father. "Dad?" Eric stood. "I'll give you guys a minute." Dad took his vacant chair, looking everywhere but at my hands. "Your mother wanted to come." "Let me guess. I just need to admit I lied, and all will be forgiven?" "Actually," he pulled out his phone, "she wanted to show you this." It was a local news website. The headline read, "Local woman arrested for wedding gift fraud scheme." "Juliet tried to pull the same scam again," Dad said quietly. "She sent mass emails to everyone who'd RSVP'd to the wedding, claiming she needed emergency deposits to save the venue bookings. Someone reported her. And Mom finally saw the truth. Or at least she can't deny it anymore." He reached for my hand, the steady one now, post-surgery. "I filed for divorce this morning." The monitors caught my spike in heart rate. "You what?" 30 years of enabling their behavior, of watching them hurt you." His voice cracked. "I don't want that to be my whole life story." Another knock, Mia this time, with papers in hand. "Sorry to interrupt, but Bella needs to see this. Chandler's family is pressing charges too. They found evidence she'd already started transferring money from their accounts." "How much?" I asked. "Enough for federal charges." Dad's phone buzzed. He checked it and let out a hollow laugh. "Your mother's asking me to help pay for Juliet's lawyer." "And?" "I told her to use the wedding venue deposit." He stood up. "I should go. But Bella, I'm proud of you, not just for exposing the truth, but for fighting for yourself when I wouldn't." After he left, Mia sat down. "You okay?" "Getting there." I flexed my fingers, marveling at their steadiness. "Did you see the Reddit post?" "About that?" She grinned. "3 publishers have contacted me. They want you to write a book." "About?" "About surviving toxic family dynamics, about standing up to abuse, about choosing yourself." Eric came back in with coffee. "Tell her the title I suggested." "Surviving Golden Shadows, When Family is the Villain," Mia said. "What do you think?" Before I could answer, Georgia rushed back in. "You need to see this." She held up her phone. On it was a video of my mother, makeup perfect despite her hospital stay, giving an interview to a local news station. "My daughters," she dabbed at dry eyes, "both need help. One with criminal tendencies, one with delusions. As a mother, my heart is broken." "Turn it off," I said. "Wait for it." The reporter turned to the camera. "But documents show Mrs. Wright was aware of the fraud, even participating in threatening behavior to cover it up. Witnesses have come forward." "They're investigating Mom too," Georgia said. "The threats to your job, the harassment, it's all coming out." I looked at my steady hands, at my friends crowded into the hospital room, at the father who finally chose right over easy. "You know what the strangest part is?" I said. "I don't feel guilty anymore." "Good." Eric squeezed my shoulder. "You shouldn't." My phone lit up with a message from Zoe. "Juliet's mugshot is online, still wearing that Chanel she bought with stolen wedding gifts." "So," Mia sat on the edge of my bed, "about that book deal?" "I'll do it," I said. "People need to know they're not alone. That standing up to family abuse isn't betrayal. It's survival." "Speaking of survival," Eric pulled out a small wrapped package. "Early getting out of hospital gift from all of us." Inside was a journal, bound in soft leather. The first page had an inscription. "Sometimes the happiest ending isn't riding off into the sunset, it's walking away from the shadows. Write your truth. We've got your back. Love, your chosen family." I traced the words with my steady fingers, feeling the strength in them. Not just the physical strength from the surgery, but the deeper strength that comes from finally breaking free. "Thank you," I said, looking at each of them, "for everything." "That's what real family does," Georgia smiled. My hands didn't shake as I opened the journal to its first blank page. They didn't shake as I wrote the opening line of my story. They wouldn't shake again,